Chapter 277. Muhua was also angered by Dai Yi's words. He was about to retort when Langton waved his hand slightly, and the crowd quieted down again. Langton carefully sized up Ding Meng. His gaze was still very gentle, but Ding Meng felt an extremely sharp force scrutinizing him. This force naturally did not come from Langton, but from the middle-aged man behind him. The other party was obviously checking him out. Langton looked at him for about half a minute before he slowly opened his mouth. This Mr. Ting looks unfamiliar to me, but I've always felt that citizens are humans and refugees are humans as well. Although there is a difference in status between humans, there is no difference in personality. Mr. Ting came here on behalf of the Xinhong group to congratulate us. Since he's here, he's a guest. I don't think Mr. Ting looks like a swindler. Instead, he's young and promising. It's my honor to be able to invite a guest like Mr. Ting. It had to be said that these big shots spoke with a certain level of skill. His words not only set the tone, but also made the other guests look at him in new light. Because of these words, Ding Meng's view of him changed from indifference to respect. Ding Meng slightly lowered his head towards Langton to show his respect. Langton smiled faintly, which could be considered as an answer. This time, Yong Bang couldn't take it anymore. If he just let it go like this, then he would have made a fool of himself today. He obviously has bad intentions towards Miss Dai. I don't trust him at all. Yong Bang continued to point at Ding Meng's nose angrily. Miss Dai is of high status. She definitely can't be with such a lowly person. As soon as he said this, the people around him couldn't help but cast him a disdainful look. Other people couldn't do it, but only he could. If he wanted to defeat his love rival, improving his own strength was the way to go. Yong Bang was so angry that he lost his mind a little. Du Mo silently stood beside Ding Meng and said faintly, "Mr. Ding Meng and I once fought side by side. I know what kind of person he is. At the same time, let me explain that Mr. Ding Meng is also my friend." For Du Mo to say such a thing with such a gentle personality, Yong Bang understood how angry he was. He was openly supporting Ding Meng. If he continued to cause trouble, he would be going against the Du family. It wasn't a wise move to offend several families at once. Su Qianqian whispered to Aaron, "I was wondering why Sister Yi's boyfriend was a refugee. It turns out he's also an origin ability user." Aaron looked at Ding Meng thoughtfully. "Maybe he's a warrior. That's impossible, right?" Su Qianqian was shocked. Ding Meng looked like he was at most 25 years old. Aaron said, "Anyway, I feel that if Lily likes someone, they must not be bad." Su Qianqian agreed. "That's for sure." The two of them were chatting privately from afar. At this time, Muhua also stood up. "Duomo, what you said is meaningless. A refugee is a refugee. Although he didn't do anything out of line, this kind of place is not for refugees. Just because you don't mind doesn't mean that the other guests here don't mind." Her words hit the nail on the head and successfully transferred the hatred to the crowd. The banquet hall was once again filled with discussion. Duomo said in a low voice, "Then what do you think should be done?" Mu Hua replied faintly, "He doesn't belong here. He should leave with dignity." Without waiting for Du and Mo to answer, "Dai," he suddenly snorted. "Do you think I don't know that you're full of evil tricks? You want to drive Ding Meng away? Fine. If Ding Meng leaves here, I'll go with him. Yong Bang, don't come after me if you can." After saying that, she grabbed Ding Meng's arm and was about to walk out the door. Yong Bang said decisively, "Stop. Do you think this is a place where you can come and go as you please? If I don't teach you a lesson, you won't remember. I'll take you to the security office personally. You can go back to wherever you came from." Mu Hua looked helplessly at Dongfang Lian behind her. Dongfang Lian understood, but he was also helpless. Dai Yi really had Yong Bang under control. This kind of woman was not suitable for Yong Bang. He didn't know what was wrong with Yong Bang, but he just couldn't let go. True love killed people. Li Yu saw that the situation was getting out of control and took the initiative to stand in front of Ding Meng. "Stop. Mr. Ting is a third-level VIP of Starbao Group. Anyone who tries to attack him should consider the consequences. Sir, please stay calm and control your emotions." Yong Bang couldn't control himself at all. He threw Li Yu to the ground and reached out to grab Ding Meng's shoulder. Seeing that he dared to make a move in the banquet hall, Langton couldn't help but cough violently. Obviously, he was angered by Yong Bang's rude behavior. "Dad!" Lang Ling quickly supported him. "I'll help you inside to rest. Brother Xing and Uncle Hui will take care of this." Brother Xing was naturally her fiancé, Du Peixing. Uncle Hui was the middle-aged man behind Langton. His real name was Fu Zhonghui. Fu Zhonghui nodded slightly at Du Peixing. "They're all young people. They can't calm down. You control the situation later." Du Peixing naturally understood, who hadn't been young before. It was normal for young people to fight because of jealousy. However, in a place like this, if they use their fists and legs appropriately and move their muscles and bones, their anger would dissipate. It was best to stop when it was appropriate. In reality, it was impossible to stop when it was appropriate. As soon as Yong Bang's hand touched Ding Meng's shoulder, his 5 fingers immediately bent into a claw and directly pulled down on Ding Meng's elbow. Everyone present was an origin ability user. As soon as they saw the way he pulled down, they knew that this was the Federation's standard martial technique, Origin Steel Claw. This Origin Steel Claw was only one word different from Chung Rifeng's Origin Steel Shield, but the two were different martial techniques. After mastering them, not only would they be as hard as alloy, but they would also be flexible and changeable. It was very easy to hit a person's key areas and cause them to lose their ability to move. In the end, Yong Bang hadn't completely lost his mind. He still had a trace of respect in his heart. If someone really died, then today's matter would be enough to make his Yong family suffer. However, the situation that he imagined of Ding Meng's elbow being restrained didn't happen. Instead, a flexible elastic force appeared on Ding Meng's arm and immediately bounced him back. His whole body even moved back 5 or 6 steps on the ground and was caught by Mu Hua and Dongfeng Lian. "You!" Yong Bang's anger was even greater. "I didn't even dare to use my strength, and you actually dared to resist?" Only Ding Meng could understand the meaning of these words. The moment Yong Bang came up, his telekinesis vision had already observed him from head to toe. The origin energy that Yong Bang used was probably at the level of an ordinary high-level origin ability user. If he really dared to use the energy of a warrior, the surrounding facilities would be shaken to pieces. Of course, Ding Meng definitely couldn't use his full strength. His inner energy was far better than the average person's, and a slight rotation of the first point was enough. At this time, Du Peixing opened his mouth. "There are virtual cabins in Building 3. If you two want to compare notes, you can go to the BattleNet and compare notes to your heart's content. The virtual cabins could be connected to the Battlecraft League. You could do whatever you wanted in the virtual world, even if you turned the world upside down. After all, it was safer than in reality. This was also an unwritten rule within the Federation. As long as it wasn't a blood feud, the conflict between two families could be resolved in the Battlecraft League." Yong Bang looked at Ding Meng and sneered. "What a joke. A refugee has the qualifications to log into Battlecraft League? He probably hasn't even seen a virtual cabin before. Does he think that he's a citizen just because he's wearing some clothes?" This made sense. Ding Meng didn't have the qualifications to be a citizen, so naturally, he couldn't log in. Although he had logged in before, that was on the Norse Empire's Excellence server, and it was in region-protected mode. The ID, "What should I do then?" shouldn't have been uploaded to the Battlecraft League's database yet. However, Yong Bang kept talking about refugees left and right, which made Ding Meng a little angry. There was no other reason than that people like Yong Bang discriminated too much against refugees, which slowly led to the difficult situation of the people on planet KV-303. Fine. Ding Meng didn't want to be polite with him anymore. "If you have the guts, stay in here and don't come out." After that, he turned and walked out of the door. As soon as he left, Dai Yi, Li Yu, and Du Mo naturally had to follow. As soon as Dai Yi left, Aaron and Su Qianqian also had to go out. As soon as the 3 beauties left, the brilliance in the banquet hall seemed to have dimmed a lot. Everyone looked at Yong Bang again. The meaning was obvious. You're the one who shouted the loudest. Now, do you dare to fight back? Of course, Yong Bang had to fight back. His biggest wish now was to cripple Ding Meng so that he would be traumatized for the rest of his life. Let's see if he still dared to stay by Dai Yi's side. Yongbang followed him out without saying anything. As soon as he went out, more than half of the people in the banquet hall rushed out. It couldn't be helped. The people who came today were all young people, and they were usually too restrained by etiquette. Now that someone is going to fight for real, the fact that they didn't kick up a fuss was already showing respect to the Lang family. Now, they all ran out happily. Fu Zhonghui shook his head helplessly and said to Du Peixing with a bitter smile, "Go and keep an eye on them. Don't make any trouble. I'll go to Building 4 to accompany the old man." Du Peixing said, "Uncle Hui, don't worry. I'll keep an eye on these little guys." There was a spare helipad by the cliff of the villa area. It was not small, almost the size of a football field. This helipad used for emergency purposes was made of alloy. Otherwise, it would not be able to withstand the eruption of crystal flames when a spaceship took off and landed. Therefore, there would be no damage at all if origin ability users fought here. However, Su Qianqian could not understand. She said with some concern, "Sister E, Yongbang is not weak. If they really fight..." Dai Yi watched Ding Meng walking slowly to the helipad and said proudly, "Humph, he's the frog at the bottom of the well. He doesn't know how powerful cousin Ding Meng is." Her impression of Ding Meng was still stuck at the Flying Star City. Even Cheng Rifeng, who was piloting a warframe, could not kill Ding Meng. Yongbang was nothing. Su Qianqian was still worried. She turned to Du Mo and said, "Brother Du Mo, didn't you fight alongside Ding Meng? Do you think Ding Meng will be fine?" Du Mo's expression was a bit complicated, but his tone was full of envy. His strength seems to have improved again. This guy, how did he cultivate? I'll have to ask him later. Su Qianqian was stunned. What? Why don't you guys look worried at all? Chapter 278. At this moment, the lights on the empty tarmac were all turned on, and it was as bright as day. It was as if there were two groups of people on a football field. Behind Ding Meng were naturally Dai Yi, Liu, Du Mo, Aaron, and Su Qianqian. The one who was most angry now was not Dai Yi, but Liu. She was a non-combat admin type origin ability user. She had just been violently thrown to the ground by Yongbang, and the fall was not light either. A large part of her thigh was swollen, and she was limping when she walked. However, she did not dare to act up because she had already learned from Su Qianqian that this Yongbang was not simple at all. He was the eldest son of the Yong family in Blue Pole Star City, an outstanding student of Starlight University, and someone who was very popular with the teachers. It was said that he was expected to pass the qualification certification this year, and she was just an ordinary employee of the Starlight Group. The Starlight Group's reputation was big enough, but it was not to the extent that they would make a big fuss over an employee. Thus, Liu's eyes were red, and she looked very wronged. This made Ding Meng a little angry. Thinking that Liu had personally come to the space station to pick him up and run up and down, thinking about everything for him, and did not despise him for being an interstellar refugee, this Yongbang's arrogance really made him unhappy. He was unhappy, but Yongbang was even more unhappy. When he thought of the beautiful Dai Yi holding Ding Meng's arm, he felt that he had been greatly humiliated. He could barely accept that Ding Meng was a citizen of the Federation, but he could not be a refugee. As the eldest son of the Yong family, he could not be worse than a refugee. His pride would not allow it, and the reputation of the Yong family would not allow it. Moreover, he even imagined that one day in the future, Dai Yi would be under Ding Meng's body. This made him even angrier, and he could not suppress it no matter how hard he tried. Sometimes, people's emotions were caused by their imagination. At this time, Mu Hua and Dongfang Lian were definitely on his side, but they were not discussing how he would teach Ding Meng a lesson. Instead, they were starting to bet again. Dongfang Lian lazily said, 3 million. I bet that kid can last 10 moves. 10 moves? Mu Hua snorted disdainfully. Lian, you think too highly of him. I'll add 1 million. He'll be defeated by Yongbang within 3 moves. At this time, the helipad was surrounded by 56 people who were commenting on the 2 people who were about to fight. Of course, most people did not think that Ding Meng could win. Yongbang was a top student of Starlight University, and the Yong family was not short of money and cultivation resources. This alone made it impossible for an alien refugee to compete with them. Even Du Peixing had such thoughts. He was now standing in the middle of the tarmac. If Yong Bang attacked too heavily, he could instantly stop him. If necessary, he could even show off his skills to this group of young people who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. He would tell them that the true ability of origin ability users wasn't something they could handle. At this moment, Ding Ming slowly walked to the center of the tarmac and looked at Yong Bang expressionlessly. Come on. Yong Bang naturally had to come. He sneered and said, Kid, you chose to fight. This place is not like the inside. Let me tell you, there are some people you can't afford to offend. If you don't have the strength to pursue a girl, don't do things like provoke your love rival. Ding Ming was too lazy to say anything more to him. He directly crooked his finger and said, Come on. Yong Bang did not talk nonsense. He suddenly jumped up and grabbed at his opponent with one hand in the air. There was a faint light yellow energy flowing between his claws. Needless to say, this was the most primitive source energy release of a beginner warrior. This grab was not his main goal. The real follow-up was his other hand. In his palm, there was a stronger source energy. No matter whether his opponent dodged or received it, he was confident that his second claw would catch Ding Ming. Then, Ding Ming would kneel and beg for mercy. However, although his imagination was very rich, the situation was completely beyond his expectations. Just like in the banquet hall, there was a strange elastic force on Ding Ming's arm. Before he could even get close to him, his entire body was bounced back and slid back. Du Peixing's eyes lit up. He was the only one present who knew the trick behind this. To be precise, Ding Ming had only activated his origin energy. Not only was his origin energy deep, but his control of strength was also quite accurate. Yong Bang slid in front of Muhua and Dongfang Lian before coming to a stop. For a beginner warrior to have this kind of skill, it could be said that it was quite extraordinary. Yong Bang was forced back again. He was not embarrassed. Instead, he straightened his back and laughed loudly, clapping as he laughed. Everyone was curious. What was wrong with this guy? Had he gone crazy? Only Ding Ming looked at him indifferently. This was because Ding Ming knew that he had not used his full strength yet. Yong Bang laughed. Ha, this is a bit interesting. A little refugee is actually a beginner warrior. Not bad, not bad. This is finally a bit interesting. This time, he let out a long breath. Even though he was dozens of meters away, the people around him could feel the fluctuations in his breath. This was an intermediate warrior of the tempered system. The key was that his martial arts were not bad, so he had the right to be arrogant. Kid, I'll let you see the difference between a real citizen and a refugee. As soon as he finished speaking, Yong Bang suddenly rushed forward. His speed was clearly a level higher than last time, and this time he did not use the origin steel claws. Instead, he used the double wind-piercing ear technique. His two palms struck Ding Ming's temples. Actually, this technique was a bit sinister. At the very least, it was not within the scope of a spar. This was a technique that would only be used in a life or death situation to counterattack. Unfortunately, no matter how fierce the attack was, Ding Ming still stood in place. He casually waved his hand, and Yong Bang returned again. This time, he did not slide back. Instead, he staggered backward and sat on the ground. His position was still in front of Muhua. This was a bit awkward because there was a small hole in his pants on the steel plate. Moreover, it was on his butt. No way. Dongfang Lian was a bit dumbfounded. That kid is actually an advanced warrior. Muhua said indifferently, It's okay. Yong Bang hasn't used his full strength yet. After being bounced back 3 times in a row, Yong Bang did not smile this time. His face was a bit hot. It was not embarrassing, but he had indeed underestimated this kid. The people around them began to discuss again. Clearly, no one had expected Ding Ming to have such a deep background. Advanced warriors were like gods among the refugees, but in the Federation, they were common. Ding Ming still stood there without moving. His expression was still calm. Duomo wondered what this guy was thinking. Passively taking a beating was not this guy's style. Actually, what he didn't know was that Ding Ming had already woken up little rascal, little AI, from her dormant mode. After reading the event log, little AI's suggestion was naturally to immediately eliminate the enemy target. However, Little Rascal had a different opinion. Ding Meng, this is an opportunity. Ding Meng was curious. Oh, what opportunity? Little Rascal said, this young Bang is definitely not your opponent, but he's definitely not weak. He's also an outstanding student of Starlight University. Why don't you force him to use his trump card bit by bit? Let's see how these orthodox origin ability masters are different from unorthodox origin ability masters. This will be of great help to your cultivation. After all, we've already entered the Federation's territory. It's not like outer space. We'll definitely encounter a lot of experts in the future. Ding Ming nodded. What Little Rascal said made sense. Starlight University was so famous, so Yong Bang shouldn't be so useless. He definitely had something up his sleeve. At this moment, Yong Bang's anger had mostly subsided. It was replaced by shock and sobriety. He had no choice but to take this refugee seriously. Perhaps it could be said that Ding Ming was no longer a refugee in his eyes. It was impossible for there to be someone with such a cultivation base among the refugees. Yong Bang took off his suit and tie. He slowly clenched his fists and secretly accelerated the origin within his body. At this moment, a solid and heavy aura spread out from his body in all directions. This aura gave off the feeling of Mount Tai pressing down on one's head. Muhua couldn't help but light a cigarette and reveal a happy smile. The real show is just about to begin. Dongfang Lian also smiled. Does the bet still count? Of course it does. Muhua's face was full of confidence. I said, if he can withstand 3 moves, you can have 4 million, Lian. On Ding Ming's side, Su Qianqian and Aaron both turned to look at Dai Yi. The meaning in their eyes was obvious. Great. Yong Bang revealed his identity as a war supremacy. What about Ding Ming? Dai Yi's eyes never left Ding Ming. Her tone was full of arrogance. It's useless. Su Qianqian and Aaron couldn't help but look at each other. Could it be that Dai Yi's boyfriend was also a war supremacy? However, on second thought, this was indeed very likely. Otherwise, with Dai Yi's arrogance, how could an ordinary man catch her eye? Yong Bang was indeed enlightened. This time, he didn't pounce on Ding Ming. Instead, he slowly walked toward Ding Ming. Just based on this point alone, Ding Ming began to pay more attention. In his telekinesis vision, Yong Bang's body wasn't covered in a layer of faint light. Instead, he had evolved into a ball of white flame. The flame energy was radiating in all directions, giving off the feeling that he had transformed. Little Rascal became excited. As expected, he doesn't have an ordinary body tempering system. He might even have cultivated a secret technique. A beginner body tempering war supremacy shouldn't have such powerful energy. Xiao AI said in a low voice, his origin energy index has reached 110,090 points. This was it. Ding Ming also secretly activated the first 3 origin points. He was no longer the same as before. The origin points had been cultivated so many times, and this time they had undergone the baptism of the inverse source crystal. The power of these 3 origin points was already very great. According to Xiao AI's calculations, if these 3 origin points were activated at full power, his origin energy index would exceed 300,000. For an ordinary war supremacy, this was unimaginable. The distance between the two of them was now less than 5 meters. Yong Bang spun into the air like a top and swept a leg toward Ding Ming. It looked like a leg sweep, but in reality, it had created 3 illusions. The 3 consecutive kicks landed on Ding Ming's arm. Ding Ming had no choice but to retreat. Yong Bang quickly landed on the ground. He supported himself with one hand and flew up at an angle. Countless illusions instantly appeared and combined to form a fan that completely covered Ding Ming's upper body. Chapter 279. In the eyes of the spectators around the tarmac, Yong Bang's figure was actually invisible. Ding Ming was the only one fighting and retreating, blocking left and right, constantly neutralizing Yong Bang's attacks. In Ding Ming's opinion, The foundation of Yongbang's martial technique was somewhat similar to Bamboo Pole's 7 Stars Ghost Kick. It was strange, and dazzling. However, Yongbang was clearly much stronger than Bamboo Pole. There were even afterimages of his Ghost Kick. His origin energy and realm were on a completely different level. Most importantly, with Yongbang as the center, a special force field seemed to have been constructed around him, causing his fists and feet to be imbued with an exceptionally heavy power. This was clearly a martial technique or cultivation method that was unknown to outsiders. In general, Yongbang walked the same path as Chu Shaoqing. He was fast enough, his attacks weren't weak, his martial technique was coherent, and his defense was sturdy enough. As a 33-year-old student, having this kind of cultivation was already quite outstanding. Only Ding Meng didn't want to reveal his true strength. Thus, in the eyes of the spectators, the battle between the two was fierce but not exciting enough. Little did they know that this was because Ding Meng was using the same amount of origin energy to defend himself. If it had been Chung Rifeng from Meteor City, his origin steel shield would have been reduced to nothingness under Yongbang's barrage of punches and kicks. At this moment, Little Rascal was almost done recording. Yongbang was still completely unharmed despite his prolonged attacks. His heart was burning with anxiety, so he simply took a few steps back and steeled his heart. He suddenly stood still and assumed a side lunge position. "Careful," Little Rascal decisively warned. Ding Meng also sensed that Yongbang's aura had suddenly increased by a large amount. The layer of white flames that originally covered his body was now visible to the naked eye. Yongbang seemed to have turned into a humanoid light pupil. The light pupil suddenly left his body and shot toward Ding Meng at an extremely fast speed. It even made all kinds of strange kicks and punches along the way. Furthermore, there was more than one humanoid light pupil. They kept flying out of Yongbang's body. Not only were they moving in straight lines, they were also moving in curved arcs. They flashed back and forth in 2s and 3s, as if dozens of Yongbangs were attacking Ding Meng together. This kind of strange origin energy release was different from the Lightspeed system's afterimage. Afterimage made use of speed to quickly transform, but Yongbang's Soaring Dragon Shadow was not a martial technique, but a secret manual. Every clone was made of pure origin energy. Dai, he was originally full of confidence in Ding Meng, but at this moment, he could not help but worry about Ding Meng. Because he could not see Ding Meng's real body on the tarmac, Ding Meng was surrounded and beaten up by a large group of afterimages. All he could hear was the sound of air exploding like firecrackers. Du Peixing frowned and urged his origin ability to shout, "Enough, it's about time." In his mind, when a secret manual was used, it meant that Yongbang had already decided to kill Yongbang. This was not the end of the line. However, how could Yongbang listen to him? He was in the middle of a fight, and he would not rest until he finished off this stinking brat. Otherwise, what would the people here think of the Yong clan in the future? In the end, it was still his superior mentality that was causing trouble. So what if I, a third-class citizen, killed him today? If I killed a refugee, then so be it. The Lang clan would at most scold me a little. Would the other clans come looking for trouble over a refugee? Therefore, he did not hold back and continued to urge his origin ability to attack. Suddenly, he felt that something was wrong. The mirror images that he had sent out seemed to sink into the sea. It seemed that they did not hit Yongbang, and the sound of air exploding also disappeared. When he focused his eyes, he found that all the mirror images that approached Ding Meng naturally slowed down and faded, quickly disappearing into nothingness. He still did not know that this was Ding Meng using a higher level of origin ability to directly disperse his ultimate move. He had never encountered such a situation before, and his teacher had never taught him how to deal with it. In his daze, Ding Meng's figure suddenly became a little blurry. This was bad. Although he realized it, he could not avoid it. Ding Meng had already flashed in front of him. He felt as if he had suffered an earth-shattering blow, and then his vision became distorted. Following that, an astonishing pain spread from his waist, instantly spreading to every part of his body. It was so painful that his scalp felt like it was going to explode. As for the circulation of origin ability in his body, there was no need to think about it. It was basically all stagnant. When Yong Bang returned to normal, he found that he had fallen to the ground, and Mu Hua and Dongfang Lian were frantically helping him up. When he looked around again, the young men and women who were watching the battle were laughing together. For a moment, he was stunned. He still did not understand what was going on. Du Peixing originally wanted to intervene, but at this moment, he also revealed a look of surprise. The scene just now had happened too quickly. Ding Ming flashed in front of Yong Bang, and with a hook, he lifted Yong Bang into the sky. With another flash, he was in the sky, and with a kick, he swept Yong Bang back down. He fell to the ground like a dead dog and even slid out a long trace. The result was that Yong Bang's pants, which already had holes in them, were completely torn after rubbing against the steel plate on the ground for a while. His buttocks were also exposed. Inside, he was actually wearing colorful cartoon underwear. It was no wonder that the surrounding crowd was convulsing with laughter. These young men and women were not interested in fighting and killing. What they wanted to do the most was to join the fun and have fun, especially this kind of strange fun. However, when this scene was discovered by Yong Bang himself, he was really ashamed and unable to show his face. At this moment, anger had completely overwhelmed his reason. He broke free from Mu Hua and Dongfang Lian's support and desperately rushed toward Ding Ming, who was walking with his back to him. Ding Ming was too lazy to even look at him. He continued to walk slowly toward Yong Bang. Suddenly, there was a muffled bang. Yong Bang seemed to have hit an invisible wall, and his whole body flew upside down. He kicked wildly in the air and flew back. Mu Hua and Dongfang Lian worked together to catch him again. They had no choice but to catch him even if they didn't want to. The two of them were a little embarrassed at this moment, and they couldn't carry out the bet at all. Yong Bang attacked wildly for dozens of times. Not only did Ding Ming withstand it, but he also beat Yong Bang up with only one move. However, Yong Bang was really crazy. He struggled to stand up again and wanted to continue. This time, Du Peixing couldn't let him go crazy again. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of him and grabbed his wrist. Stop! A very strong and gentle force entered Yong Bang's wrist. Yong Bang's whole body immediately became soft, and he couldn't use any strength anymore. Du Peixing said in a deep voice, Mu Hua, Xiaoyan, you two, send Yong Bang back now. I'm not going back. Yong Bang was still struggling. His eyes were full of anger and unwillingness. Let's do it again. Do it again. Du Peixing sneered disdainfully. If I were you, I'd thank him properly. Thank him. This time, not only was Yong Bang stunned, but even Mu Hua and Dongfang Lian were very confused. He was beaten up to this extent, and he still wanted to thank him? Du Peixing said meaningfully, he's been merciful every time, but you just don't know what's good for you. I've never seen someone as stubborn as you. You just have to look for death time and time again. You saw it yourself. Your shadow of the soaring dragon can't do anything to him. Go ahead and do it again. I won't stop you. If you really get beaten to death, the Federation won't hold him responsible because you're the one who wants to die. People, face is given by others, but face is lost by themselves. These words were more effective than anything else. Yong Bang's face turned pale, and he said dejectedly, let's go back to the main city. Only then did Mu Hua and Dongfang Lian support him as they limped towards Helipad 1. When they left, the spectators had no choice but to disperse. Most of them returned to the banquet hall. Ding Ming, Dai, he happily greeted him and happily held his hand. Wow, wow, wow. Little rascal was excited. Xiao AI, come out quickly. There's so many beauties. TSK, TSK. Ding Ming is going to be rich this time. The beauties she was referring to were naturally Aaron and Su Qianqian. However, these two no longer had the intention to tease Ding Ming. In their eyes, this boyfriend of Dai Yi's looked ordinary, but in fact he was unfathomable. The two of them looked at Ding Ming with a trace of respect. They were also combat-type origin ability users. They were especially clear about how exaggerated Ding Ming's casual moves were in the battle just now. It was precisely because they couldn't see the depth of Ding Ming's strength that they felt Ding Ming was terrifying. Sister, he really has good taste. She found such a boyfriend. I have to work harder, Su Qianqian secretly decided. At this time, Du Peixing slowly walked over. Du Mo immediately greeted him. Second brother. Du Peixing nodded and smiled slightly. Only now did he understand why Du Mo had publicly supported Ding Ming in the banquet hall. Obviously, he was already aware of Ding Ming's abilities. He couldn't help but feel gratified. His third brother had grown up a lot. He knew how to make friends with such people. However, Dai Yi and the others were shocked. They knew that Du Mo was a member of the Du family, but they didn't expect Du Peixing to be Du Mo's older brother. This Du Mo really kept a low profile. Du Peixing faced Ding Ming and said in a very sincere tone, "I'm really sorry for neglecting our important guests." Ding Ming shook his head. "You're too polite." Du Peixing then said to Li Yu, "Miss Li, I'm very sorry. Grandfather Lang has always been in poor health, so he didn't stop Yongbang's behavior in time. Please go to the infirmary for a checkup later. I'll send someone to escort you back later. I sincerely apologize for what happened today." His manners were refined, and his attitude was refined and courteous, making it impossible for anyone to refuse. However, Li Yu's anger had long dissipated, especially when Yongbang was smashed onto the steel plate like a dead dog, and when everyone laughed and mocked his sorry state. She felt incomparably comfortable. Li Yu smiled happily. "Thank you, Major Du, thank you." Du Peixing nodded and then said to Ding Ming meaningfully, "Mr. Ting, you and Miss Dai have not seen each other for a long time. Obviously, you haven't seen Xiao Mo for a long time. If you don't mind, please come to Villa number 5 later. I'll arrange a table to express my apology on behalf of Grandfather Lang. Today, you came with great hospitality. You can't go back in disappointment. What do you think? For beauties, what do you think? How about a party for the beauties of Starlight University?" Hearing this, Aaron and Su Qianqian immediately cheered. However, seeing that Ding Ming didn't have any expression, Du Mo took the initiative to invite him enthusiastically. "Indeed, Ding Ming, we haven't seen each other for a long time. This time, no matter what, we have to have a good chat. Miss Dai, you don't mind if I borrow your boyfriend for a chat, do you?" Hearing this kind of address, Dai didn't mind at all. Her eyebrows were curved into an arc. Chapter 280. Villa number 5 was a small, private residence. It was located beside a blue swimming pool, facing the sea, and had a pleasant view. However, Du Peixing's arrangement was also very interesting. He did not prepare a fancy banquet, but an exquisite alloy rack in the courtyard of the villa. Everyone gathered in a circle and barbecued in the open air. They were all young people, and they were not only classmates but also friends. This kind of gathering could reduce the constraints of etiquette and increase the intimacy between friends. This arrangement was undoubtedly for Ding Ming's sake. After all, Ding Ming came from a refugee planet in outer space. When he saw such a big pile of delicious food, there was no reason for him to refuse. He reached out and grabbed a few big skewers, chewing until his mouth was full of oil. As he chewed, he also reached out to pick the big ribs on the barbecue rack. Ding Ming slowed down, slowed down. Dai Yi, who was next to him, grilled chicken wings for him with a smile. It could be seen that although Dai Yi was born in a big family, he often cooked by himself. He was quite skilled in turning the skewers, brushing the oil, and adding the ingredients. In contrast, Irene and Su Qianqian were real rich ladies. Their hands were quite clumsy, and the beef skewers were half-cooked. The taste was very strange, but Ding Ming did not refuse. All the barbecued meat was only one word: eat. Ding Ming's table manners made Li Yu laugh. Li Yu also held a big handful of chicken legs and roasted them over the fire. "Mr. Ding Ming, eat more. There's still a few big basins here." Du Mo handed Ding Ming an open beer. "Ding Ming, try this. It's the twisted beer from Blue Pole Star City. It tastes very good." After the group of people ate and drank happily for a while, Du Peixing rushed over from the banquet hall with Lang Ling and joined the barbecue army. In fact, Lang Ling didn't have to come, but Du Peixing had just checked the entry and exit records on the Skynet space station. This young man named Ding Ming was only 21 years old. This time, he wasn't just surprised, he was completely serious. There were more than 3 million origin ability users in Blue Pole Star City. Among them, the Warlord-level origin ability users were only a very small portion. There were no more than 15 Warlord-level origin ability users. However, these people had basically cultivated to the limit. The possibility of advancing any further was very slim. Therefore, Du Peixing usually focused on young origin ability users because he knew that, to a certain extent, the future of the Federation depended on these people. This Ding Ming in front of him had already displayed the strength of an intermediate war venerable, and he was only 21 years old. At least in Blue Pole Star City, Du Peixing had never seen such a person before. Just based on this point alone, it was worth making friends with him. It was no wonder that a behemoth like the Starbao Group would treat this person as a guest of honor. Therefore, at this moment, Du Peixing and his wife had come together to show their respect for this group of young talents. Erin was obviously familiar with Lang Ling. As soon as she saw her, she quickly gave up her seat. "Sister Ling, sit with me." Lang Ling smiled and waved her hand. "You guys have a seat. Eat more and have fun." Du Peixing sat down next to Ding Ming. After taking a sip of beer, he said, "Ding Ming, I'm a few decades older than you. Do you mind if I call you little brother?" Ding Ming now knew that Du Peixing was 56 years old this year. He was in the prime of his youth and was a major in the Federation's military. This military rank meant that Du Peixing was at least at the level of a war master. He also commanded Blue Moon's special fleet. Whether it was strength or power, his influence was very great. "Major Du, you're too polite," Ding Ming responded politely. Du Peixing smiled. "You're the one who's being polite. I heard from Xiao Mo that you guys fought with the extreme pirates on Cypress Gu. Lu Ming and the other pirate leaders were killed by you. In the future, if you're free, come here more often. Don't call me Major. Call me Second Brother." Dai immediately became interested. "Ding Ming, so you went to such a dangerous place in the past year." Du Mo quickly said, "Miss Dai, Ding Ming went there for the tens of thousands of innocent refugees on planet KV-303. Fortunately, Ding Ming eventually avenged their families." The others obviously knew about the murder case at Green Arrow Base. They immediately started talking about it, and all of them were indignant. Du Peixing's expression was very excited. "Good job. Those bastards should have died long ago. It's a pity that my fleet can't go out at will without orders from above. Otherwise, with my temperament, I would have killed them long ago. Would I have let them do such an unforgivable thing?" Lang Ling looked at him with eyes full of pride. "You're so impatient. How can you be a fleet commander?" Dai smiled and said, "Sister Ling, cousin Ding Ming is just like brother Xing. They're both full of a sense of justice." Su Qianqian poked her head over and blinked with a smile. "Sister E, people in love are really different. Other people can't talk about anything other than their profession, but you can't talk about anything other than your little brother Ming Ming." "Ming Ming?" Dai blushed a little. Su Qianqian quickly replied, "Yes, Ming Ming." Aaron also joined in the fun. Yes, cousin Ding Ming is a little cute. You two are the cute ones." Dai got up and chased after Su Qianqian. The three beauties immediately laughed and played on the lawn. The atmosphere was very cheerful. Du Mo then asked, "Ding Ming, did you come to Blue Pole Star City specifically for the matter of the Starbao Group?" Ding Ming finally stopped stuffing himself with food. "You can say that. By the way, Du Mo, I want to ask if there's any way to go to Linda's department." "Linda's department?" Du Mo and Du Peixing were both stunned. Du Peixing was a little puzzled. "Brother, why are you going to Linda's department at this time? Is there something important?" Ding Ming nodded. He had to explain. "My friend asked me to send something of his back to his family." Du Peixing asked tentatively, "Do you have to send it back?" Ding Ming sighed softly. "Well, this is my friend's relic." Du Peixing was relieved. He continued to ask, "Which planet is it on?" Ding Ming said, "The immortal weaving planet of Linda's department." Du Peixing was stunned again. After a long time, he explained meaningfully, "Brother, you should know that the entire Linda's department is now in a state of emergency. No ships from the outside are allowed to enter. I'll be honest with you. The Thorn Planet, Immortal Weaving Planet, and Flying Planet of Area 56 are now the most violent planets. Our military is keeping an eye on them. Ding Ming frowned. Is there no way to get in? Du Peixing said, it's not completely impossible, but if you want to go in person, you have to meet several conditions. Ding Ming immediately asked, Brother Du, please tell me. Du Peixing pondered and said, after a while, it will be my fleet's turn to patrol the line. The route will pass by Area 56. When the time comes, you can follow the fleet on the pretext of carrying out a special military mission. I promise that I will send you to Immortal Weaving Planet. This was selling Ding Ming a solid favor. To put it bluntly, he was using his authority as a commander to allow Ding Ming to board the military fleet. Ding Ming hurriedly thanked him. Thank you so much, Brother Du. Du Peixing waved his hand. Brother, don't worry. This is far from enough. You're now a refugee. No matter what the reason is, refugees will never be able to board the ship. So, the most important thing now is to resolve your citizenship. Of course, with your current cultivation, citizenship is a piece of cake. Du Mo said, Ding Ming, actually, I have a better suggestion now. You can enter Starlight University to study. With your current strength, you don't need to follow the prescribed order of being an ordinary student. Then, your citizenship will naturally be resolved. After a while, the Holy Grail Federation's annual certification exam will begin. If you get a good ranking, then you will no longer be an ordinary citizen. With Starlight University's recommendation, the resistance to boarding the ship will be much lower. After returning from Cypress Planet, my instructors are very much looking forward to meeting you. Liu also said, Mr. Ting, actually, Mr. Du's suggestion is very good. If you pass the certification, Starlight Group can hire you as an employee or as an honorary guest. You will officially become a member of Starlight Group. Starlight Group and Starlight University have always been close partners. With the joint recommendation of the two families, you will have no resistance to go to Linda's department. Du Peixing nodded and said, Du Mo and Miss Li's suggestion is the fastest shortcut. Brother, you should consider it carefully. Seeing so many people giving him advice, Ding Ming was very grateful. Thank you for your consideration. I will definitely consider it carefully. Du Peixing smiled and patted him on the shoulder. Du Mo is usually a lone wolf. His vision is very unique. Since he is so sure that you're a friend, then naturally, he is also a friend of our Du family and Lang family. You are welcome to come and play at any time. If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask. Don't be an outsider. I can promise you that Yong Bang won't dare to trouble you. Thank you, Brother Du. Ding Ming smiled and continued. Du Mo, in fact, I also need something now. Du Mo smiled and said, Ding Ming, what do you lack? I will find a way for you now. At present, what Ding Ming lacked the most was weapons. The ancient sword had been melted by cartel, so he could only brace himself and ask, Du Mo, is there any way to get blue sky or without plundering the devouring realm? Before Du Mo could answer, Aaron's laughter came from not far away. Shout, your Ming Ming wants blue sky, or why don't you go and find a way? Dai, he pushed her from behind with both hands. Find a way? How can you say that, Lin Lin? Du Mo smiled again. With this great god here, Ding Ming, you don't need to ask me. Fortunately, Liu explained to him in a low voice. Aaron's father was the CEO of the Rainbow Gold Group. The Rainbow Gold Group was the authority in the research and development of materials in Blue Pole Star City. Dai, he was like a little girl in front of Aaron. Aaron was annoyed by her and had to sit down next to Ding Ming. She smiled and said, How much or does Ming Ming want? Ding Ming was also a little embarrassed by this title. 200 pounds of blue sky gold. Du Mo was surprised. What do you want so much for? To make armor? Chapter 281. There was a reason for Du Mo's surprise. Putting aside how difficult it was to obtain the blue sky or the transportation cost from the Devourer realm to the Holy Grail Federation was a huge sum. After the transportation, it had to be refined repeatedly to obtain the blue sky or 200 pounds of blue sky or was worth more than 500 million on the market, which was equivalent to half a warframe. Ding Ming's demand was indeed shocking. However, Aaron was still laughing and fooling around with Dai. Dingy, let me say this first. This is my first time meeting your boyfriend. Ming Ming has to accept it. Dai blushed and said, I was afraid you wouldn't accept it. I'll go to your house tomorrow and accept the gift. The two were still fooling around. Liu, on the other hand, was very emotional. Wow, 500 million for a first-time meeting. You rich people really know how to play. Dingming was also emotional. He was not emotional about the money. He was surprised that Aaron had offered him a huge sum of money. He had already used it all back on Cypress Grove. He was just thinking that Miss Dai and Aaron must have a very good relationship. Otherwise, she would not be so generous. So he took the initiative to say this. Miss Aaron, your gift is really expensive. If there's anything I can help with, please let me know. Huh. Su Qianqian was happy. She blinked and smiled. Ming Ming, you know it's expensive. Don't worry. There are many things we need your help with. We will call you at any time. Ha ha. Ding Ming said with a straight face. Of course. Su Qianqian smiled. Ming Ming, don't be so serious. Sister Yi's boyfriend should be more humorous. Ding Ming scratched his head in embarrassment. I will work hard in the future. Lang Ling also smiled. Qianqian, the three of you are too naughty. Ding Ming is so scared that he doesn't dare to speak. She couldn't help but turn to Ding Ming and say, Ding Ming, please feel free to come here. Don't mind the formalities. It wasn't easy for you to come all the way here from outer space. I heard from Xiaoma that you've been running around for the refugees in the Green Arrow base. It must have been hard on you. If you need anything, just let me know. I'll do my best to help them. Upon hearing this, Ding Ming immediately stood up. Thank you so much, Sister Lang Ling. He suddenly thought of something and changed his words. By the way, Sister Lang Ling, you're in the research and development of technology. Do you know about the 7th generation Angel military medical cabin of the Holy Grail Federation? Just like Du Peixing, Lang Ling also showed a surprised expression. You shouldn't look like you're seriously ill. Ding Ming smiled bitterly. Sister Lang Ling, I'm not the one who needs treatment. It's someone else who needs treatment. Lang Ling also sighed. Brother Ding Ming, if you say that the refugees need the Angel medical cabin to treat them, I don't really believe it. The refugees don't need such a high-end product to treat them. Since you know about this thing, you should know that it's a military equipment. However, I'm not doubting your motives. I'm just curious. Who are you going to use it to treat? Lang Ling was obviously very familiar with the Federation's products. Ding Ming also knew that he had to tell the truth. He sighed and said, I don't dare to hide it from you. This group of people have been poisoned by a strange poison that devours the entire world. They haven't been able to get treatment for many years. I only treated them once half a year ago, but I still couldn't cure them completely. That's why I took the liberty to make this request. I sincerely hope that Sister Lang Ling can help them. The surprise on Lang Ling's face instantly turned into bewilderment. How long have they been poisoned? Ding Ming said helplessly. More than 70 years. This time, Lang Ling was not the only one who was shocked. Du Peixing almost rushed to ask, the group of doctors who were on the opposing side during the Devouring World War more than 80 years ago. Ding Ming nodded. Yes. Lang Ling's shock turned into surprise. They're still alive? Ding Ming said sadly. Most of them have passed away, but their descendants are still alive. Lang Ling could not suppress the excitement in her eyes, but she still asked carefully, May I ask if Dr. Zhu Lixian is still alive? Ding Ming shook his head and said, Dr. Zhu has already passed away. Lang Ling suddenly looked disappointed. Then, she continued to ask carefully, What about Senior Xuyan? Is she still here? Ding Ming said seriously, Aunt Xuyan is still here. She's waiting for the medical cabin now. Oh my God. Lang Ling did not care about her lady-like image anymore. She turned around and shook Du Peixing's shoulder. Ah Xing, quickly prepare the starship for me. I want to save Senior Xuyan. Quick, quick, quick. Du Peixing smiled bitterly. You said that I'm impatient. You're the one who's really impatient. Ding Ming asked curiously, Do you know Aunt Xuyan too? Du Mo explained, Ding Ming, you might not know this, but Senior Zhu broke the law to develop the antidote. There were a few times when he was forced to stop the research due to pressure. However, it was old Master Lang who helped him secretly. He provided the research institute and resources so that the research could continue. No wonder Lang Ling was so excited. It turned out that the two families had such a deep relationship. Ding Ming could not help but smile bitterly. Fortunately, I came here today. Otherwise, I would still be worried about this. Du Peixing smiled and said, "Brother, you're a lucky star." He turned his head and said to Lang Ling, "Xiao Ling, you should go and tell old Master Lang about this. Tomorrow morning, I'll arrange for the second-level space station fleet to depart and send you to planet KV-303. You don't have to worry about the Angel Medical Cabin. I guarantee that Senior Shuiyan will definitely recover." The Mo also smiled. "Ding Ming, I didn't expect you to be so accomplished in the medical field." Ding Ming did not have any accomplishments. The K-virus was almost an all-purpose antidote. However, in the face of Dumo's praise, he was a little embarrassed and could only lie. "I know a little about toxins. I can't compare to Dr. Zhu and the rest." He did not know that the more he explained, the more Du Mo felt that he was unfathomable. In the end, he still did not know the inside story of Du Mo's trip to Cyprus Ancient Planet. Du Mo was not an ordinary student at Starlight University. He was also a top student who was expected to pass the qualification exam this year. He had more than one mentor, but they were famous in many fields. Everyone trained Du Mo together. Although Du Mo was a disciple of a famous family, he was also talented and hardworking. At the age of 25, he had the strength of a beginner war elder. However, the flowers in the greenhouse had to be baptized by wind, rain, thunder, and lightning before they could bloom beautifully. Coincidentally, the murder of planet KV-303, the auction of the Extreme Thief Core, and the old materials of the Starlight Group were all gathered on Cyprus Ancient Planet. Therefore, Dumo's trip to Cyprus Ancient Planet was equivalent to a trial. Of course, for a proud student like him, he must be prepared in advance for a solo adventure. In fact, if Ding Ming thought a little deeper, he should understand that Dumo's trip to Cyprus Ancient Planet was not simple. First of all, he had the strength of a light elemental war elder, followed by the Nemesis armor, and then all kinds of people, property, and equipment. The combination of these factors showed that the cultivation resources behind Du Mo were extremely huge. At least, this was not something that people in outer space could have. As a result, no one expected that a Hercules armor would appear on Cyprus Ancient Planet. Du Mo almost died in the hands of Bai Lo. Therefore, after he returned to Starlight University, this group of mentors did not let him go. They wanted him to replay everything that happened on Cyprus Ancient Planet with his wrist device. In the final battle with Bai Lu and the man in the suit, the recording function of his wrist device was shaken and damaged. The mentors asked Du Mo to repeat everything he saw later, including every detail and every person's dialogue word for word. In the end, this group of mentor monsters even simulated a simulation replay, according to his oral narration. This time, Ding Ming entered the sight of this group of people. It was conceivable that the young Ding Ming would arouse the interest of this group of mentors. One of them said on the spot, "Don't fight with me. This young man must be my student. Even if he is a soldier of the Nuashing Empire, I will turn him into a citizen of the Holy Grail Federation." Therefore, at this moment, while Ding Ming was still there, Du Mo turned on his wrist device in front of Dai Yi and pulled up the list of Cheng Jin from the contact list. This was also Dai Yi's teacher. Soon, a slightly rough middle-aged man's face appeared on the light screen. Cheng Jin's eyebrows still looked quite dignified, but when he saw that it was Du Mo's call, his expression softened a lot. Du Mo was his favorite disciple. He was usually steady and low-key. If he contacted him at this time, it must not be a small matter. So he asked, "Little Mo, it's so late. Do you have any questions about cultivation that you want to ask?" Du Mo's tone was very respectful. "Mr. Cheng, I'm sorry to disturb you so late. I have something to report to you." Cheng Jin frowned and said, "How many times have I told you that if you don't understand, you should ask?" What's so troublesome about this? Du Mo smiled and said, Do you remember Ding Meng on Bogastar that I mentioned to you before? Cheng Jin was suddenly shocked and couldn't wait to ask, You found him? Where is he now? Du Mo smiled and said, He's right next to me now. He has arrived in Blue Polestar City. By the way, I forgot to tell you that Miss Dai's boyfriend is also him. If you don't believe me, you can take a look. Du Mo aimed the light screen at Ding Meng. At this moment, he was happily snuggling up to Ding Meng's shoulder and showing a very sweet smile. Hello, Mr. Cheng. Cheng Jin was overjoyed. Hey, it's you, kid. You really came. Ding Meng also smiled and responded politely, Hello. Cheng Jin seemed to be slapping his thigh and said, When are you free? Come to me quickly. Where are you now? I'll come and pick you up later. Du Mo liked to take the unusual route at every critical moment. He quickly turned the light screen to himself and said, Mr. Cheng, Ding Meng doesn't have citizenship yet. He's a refugee. You see. Cheng Jin waved his hand and roared, What's the big deal? Tell him that the staff of the Public Security Office will personally come to Starlight University tomorrow morning and wait for him. As long as he reports to me, his citizenship will be taken care of in 10 minutes. No, tell him that he must come to me, and he must be my student. If he doesn't come tomorrow, you don't have to come. Just wait to be beaten by me. With a click, Du Mo turned off the wristband and spread his hands to Ding Meng with an aggrieved look on his face. Ding Meng, you see, I have to follow you. Otherwise, I can't even go back to school. What else could Ding Meng say? He could only smile gratefully at him and said, Du Mo, thank you. I'll do as you say. Chapter 282. Starlight University was located in the northern suburbs of Blue Polestar City. It was one of the top 10 universities in the Holy Grail Federation. In the history of the Federation, many heroes and celebrities had graduated from this university. The most famous server designer, Lin Kejia, was an outstanding student of Starlight University. Starlight University was different from the Norse Empire's Listen Academy. It was not located on the ground, but was suspended in the sky. It was hundreds of meters high from the ground. It was built according to the specifications of a space station. The interior was equipped with a large number of silver core stones and inverse source crystals. It also had a super server that was integrated into the International Space Network. At the same time, it was also installed with an anti-gravity system, allowing it to be suspended in the sky all year round. From afar, it looked like a colorful city in the sky. The school was in the truest sense of the word, and, at the same time, it was filled with the aura of modern science and technology. The school gate was made up of 2 buildings that were 50 stories high and shaped like twisted willow leaves. Above the gate were the words Starlight University, which were written in a magnificent crystal light, reflecting the vast sky. All kinds of flying machines were shuttling in and out of this gate. Just by looking at the gate of this school, one would know that no matter from which aspect, Listen Academy could not be compared at all. After all, this was an aristocratic school. Most of the children of rich families came here to study. The school had a total of more than 53,000 students. This number accounted for almost 1/20th of all the Origin Ability users in Blue Polestar City. It could be said that the best potential newcomers on Blue Moon were basically gathered in this school. These students were divided into 4 levels by the school, namely beginner, intermediate, advanced, and excellent. This was easy to understand. Beginner warrior, intermediate warrior, advanced warrior, and excellent warrior. An excellent student were students who already had the strength of a war elder. The first 3 levels of students were all taught in regular courses, and this regular course was like a fully automated industrial assembly line. Every day, they would follow the prescribed order to attend classes, cultivate, and advance. Which step are you at? What should you learn? What should you practice? Which teaching area should you go to? It was all arranged by the school's mainframe system. Intermediate students were all intermediate warriors. At this stage, they mainly focused on absorbing origin energy. Most of the time, they would be in the sensing cabin. Only when they were promoted to advanced students would there be mentors who would select those with unique talents and relatively outstanding strength to guide them so that they could advance sooner. As for students who had reached the level of War Elder, the mentors would personally teach them and design a training program according to each student's characteristics and expertise. Currently, there are a total of 42 top students in the school. On the way there, Du Mo had been introducing Starlight University to Dingming. It's mainly because these 42 people are participating in this year's qualification certification. The school has high hopes for everyone. This qualification certification was actually the certification of the level of origin ability users by the Superpower Affairs Center. It was similar to the Norse Empire's big exam, but the difference was that Starlight University was especially eye-catching. For students who passed the certification, the school would recommend places to go based on their score and level, and they would even give out honorary rewards. Even if these students had good family backgrounds, everyone still attached great importance to this point. A classic example was still Lin Kajia. Back then, her results in the qualification certification were actually not the best. After all, a statistician was not a pure combat-type origin ability user. However, in the end, she was certified as a Level 5 data master. The school gave her the secret manual 5-dimensional iterative modeling, which allowed a statistician to greatly develop the simulation and calculation ability of the brain. Then, the school recommended her to work at the Starlight Group headquarters. In just a few short years, she had designed the famous server, which made her famous. She was even received by the president, who gave her the honor of being a first-class citizen of the Federation. Therefore, qualification certification was the most important thing for students. It was related to everyone's future and destiny. Ding Meng, we're here. Du Mo opened the door and got out. Ding Meng noticed that the huge building in front of him was like a beautiful silver sailboat standing on a lawn. On the first floor of the door, there were a few glittering crystal words, Starlight Number 2. Du Mo explained, this area is the number 2 training center of the elite school district because the instructors work in this building. Ding Meng asked curiously, then what about number 1? Du Mo's expression was a bit awkward. Number 1 training center is for the more powerful elite students. I'm a number 2. The two sides usually don't interact with each other. Mu Hua, Yongbang, and Dongfang Lian are in number 1. Ding Meng was even more curious. I don't believe it. Could the 3 of them be stronger than you? Du Mo coughed dryly. I'll explain it to you later. Let's go in first, so that teacher Chung doesn't have to wait for too long. The first floor was a very ordinary metal hall, but as soon as they entered, a tall, sweet-looking girl wearing Starlight University's uniform came up to them. Student, welcome back. A beautiful day begins in the morning. Ding Meng glanced at her, and little rascal couldn't help but poke his head out. Wow, she's almost like a real person. If not for my telekinetic vision, I wouldn't be able to tell that she's an AI robot. Ding Meng was also very surprised. This beautiful girl's body seemed to be made of some kind of half-liquid, half-metal material. The internal structure was very complicated, and the thing driving her movement was a small piece of silver core stone in her heart. Du Mo smiled. Don't underestimate her. She's a school guard. School guard? Ding Meng was curious. A school guard was actually a security guard of the school. The duties of a security guard were very extensive, such as maintaining the school's environment, safety, and rules. She didn't have the ability to attack, but her defense was very strong. Furthermore, she was equipped with a brake system specially developed by the Starlight Group. If a student wanted to cause trouble, she could subdue them within 1 minute. 1 minute? Ding Meng couldn't believe it. Du Mo followed Ding Meng's example and nodded with drooping eyelids. The current record for a high-level war venerable is 48 seconds of struggle before collapsing. As for the combat masters, I haven't experienced it yet. However, if you break this thing, the school and the Starlight Group won't let you off. So, try not to provoke her. Ding Meng heaved a sigh of relief. He really couldn't imagine how this robot had subdued someone, but he still chose to believe in Du Mo. After all, the school was so famous, there must be corresponding school rules. This wasn't like the Leaston Academy, where even monsters like Lei Bao and Zhu Fei dared to cause trouble. It was a famous school, after all, so there must be strict rules. There were only 2 people in the hall. Ding Meng saw Cheng Jin from afar. Cheng Jin looked even older than he did in the video call, roughly 70 or 80 years old. As soon as he saw Ding Meng, he quickly walked up to him and revealed a warm smile. He stretched out his hand and said, I've been waiting for you for a long time. Ding Meng, welcome to Starlight University. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Today, I finally get to see you in person. Ding Meng felt that as soon as the other party held his hand, a shocking heat was transmitted from the other party's palm. This heat origin energy was very different from ordinary heat. Not only did it burn your hand, you would also feel a tearing sensation, as if a blade had been cut across your palm. There was a slight pain. This was enough to show that this instructor's origin energy foundation was very solid. It was so solid that it was frightening. It even had its own unique style. However, this amount of energy was still nothing to Ding Meng. He exerted a bit of force in his hand, and the origin energy in his body quickly pushed back against the other party's energy. Cheng Jin was still smiling at first, but in an instant, he revealed a look of surprise. Little Mo wasn't talking nonsense. You really do have some foundation. Come, let's try again. As soon as he said this, it was Ding Meng's turn to be surprised. The other party's origin energy also fiercely counterattacked. Little Rascal was amused. This old guy is testing you. Don't lose to him. Ding Meng didn't dare to be careless. He opened up all 3 of his origin points, and the surrounding air immediately distorted. Du Mo didn't circulate his origin energy, so he was sweating profusely from the impact of the two's origin energy. His surprise wasn't any less than Cheng Jin's, because he didn't think that Ding Meng would be able to withstand Teacher Cheng's handshake. In any case, every student who came to report to Cheng Jin's tutelage would receive this kind of treatment. Almost all of them would be forced to kneel and beg for mercy by Teacher Cheng, and then Teacher Cheng would give them their first ideological education lesson. Do you know how powerful I am now? Let's see what a mere war sovereign can do to you. In the world of origin energy, there is always someone better than you. But now, the two of them seemed to be evenly matched, and Ding Meng seemed to have the upper hand. This was because Ding Meng's expression was as steady as Mount Tai, while Teacher Cheng's expression changed from surprise to seriousness. He was probably going to use his true strength. Old Cheng, you're already so old, yet you're still competing with a youngster. Have you had enough fun? If you don't let go, my clothes will be set on fire. A deep voice interrupted the two's handshake. Only then did Ding Meng notice the middle-aged man wearing the Federation's security uniform and holding a mini optical computer. He also didn't circulate his origin energy, and just like Du Mo, his entire body was soaked in sweat from the heat. Cheng Jin laughed. Oh, I'm sorry. Come, Ding Meng, let me introduce you. This is Officer Shui Yong from Blue Pole Star City's Northern District Public Security Department. I notified him last night and asked him to come here specifically to register you. From now on, you will be a citizen of the Holy Grail Federation. Shui Yong had already turned on his optical computer and raised a screen. The interface was a spreadsheet filled with many options. Hello, Ding Meng. Old Cheng has already introduced your situation to me. You are currently applying for 4th-class citizenship in the Federation as a top student of Starlight University. You will receive a notice from the Public Security Department within 3 days. I hope you will contact me promptly when the time comes. Now, let's complete your personal information. The citizenship that all the refugees in outer space were envious of was solved with just a few words by Du Mo. The little rascal couldn't help but sigh. The Du family's background is quite impressive. Xiao AI said, reforming is one thing, but making friends is also an important part. ACT 5570 should have made friends like this a long time ago. It'll be very helpful for his cultivation. Little Rascal was surprised. Didn't you always suggest that we eliminate them directly? Now you understand the importance of making friends? Xiao AI said proudly. Do you think I'm still at level 1? My screening ability has been greatly improved. Little Rascal asked curiously. How much improved? Let's hear it. What about this Duomo? Xiao AI pondered for a long time before spitting out 3 words. Little fresh meat. Little rascal immediately slapped himself on the head. You call this improved? I suddenly understand the Russians a little. Xiao AI didn't understand. What do you understand about them? Little rascal said. He insists on calling Hongtashan Danhongshan. Human behavior scientists call this brain flooding. I call it system short circuit. Xiao AI was speechless. Chapter 283. Perfecting one's personal information was actually quite simple. It was nothing more than basic information such as name and age, followed by a resume. Starting from black gold base, where Ding Meng had been, what he had done, and who he had contacted were all easy to check. The event recorders in the refugee camp and the space station could all be found. Of course, the matter of the extreme pirate core would definitely not be found, but those in the know would certainly not disclose it. Finally, it was to scan his physical characteristics. Shuiyang's optical supercomputer could take care of all this. Okay, if nothing unexpected happens, you'll pass the review soon. Congratulations in advance for becoming a citizen of our Holy Grail Federation. Shuiyang turned off the optical supercomputer. In fact, based on Ding Meng's personal information, it was almost impossible for him to become a citizen. The reason was very simple. He had registered as an outsider in the Norse Empire, and this alone would not be able to pass the review. However, Cheng Jin insisted on accepting Ding Meng as a student, which made Shuiyang have to take it seriously. What was old Cheng's status? How arrogant was he? How could an ordinary origin ability user catch his eye? This Ding Meng was obviously a very talented young man. Otherwise, old Cheng would not have taken a fancy to him. Therefore, no matter what, they had to recruit him into the Federation. They could not let such a talent go to the Norse Empire, right? If they really let him go, and he became successful in the future, once the higher-ups started to investigate, everyone could only recite poems. How many worries can a gentleman have? Just like a pot of sorghum wine. As soon as the registration was completed, a group of people immediately rushed in from the entrance of the hall. There were a total of 5 people in the group, 3 men and 2 women. They looked about the same age as Cheng Jin, and they were also wearing the instructor's uniform of Starlight University. Before they arrived, their voices could be heard. I heard that Ding Meng is here. Is he the Ding Meng from Cypress Goo Planet? Teacher Jean, you specialize in the field of cold weapons. Why are you here? Xiao Du, this Ding Meng must be my student. Didn't you see that he used a sword on Cypress Goo Planet? And it was an ancient sword. What are you doing here? Aren't you going to study your armor? Ding Meng is my student. He can fight Hercules without armor. How can someone who is not familiar with armor do that? There is no future in practicing swordsmanship. Becoming a senior warrior is the right path. Nonsense. You didn't even see the final fatal blow. How could it cause the armor to self-destruct? It's obvious that you used poison to kill the soldier inside. If you can't even see that, how are you going to teach him? Don't compete with me. This kind of student will definitely be a genius in the future. What's the use of being outstanding in a single aspect? A true talent should be outstanding in all aspects. I have confidence that I can nurture him to be the first in this year's competition. While the group of teachers were quarreling, Cheng Jin walked over angrily. You old things, how did you know that Ding Meng is here? Du and Mo had already quietly introduced Ding Meng to them. This group of people was also his own teachers: Hua Bai, Jin Yun, Duan Fengyang, Du Mandong, Stephen Kingschneider, and Cheng Jin. These 6 people were the most respected teachers in Center 2, and they had extremely high attainments in their respective fields. Hua Bai, in the field of origin ability, mainly guided the absorption, refinement, and further study of origin ability. At the same time, his research in other fields was also quite good. Cheng Jin was Du Mo's leading teacher. He was in charge of the 4 major fields of heat, ice, speed of light, and body hardening. Moreover, his guidance on martial arts training was very unique. Du Mo's trip to Cypress Goo Planet was instructed by Cheng Jin. Duan Fengyang, a teacher who specialized in the 2 major fields of secret manuals and rare materials. Jin Yun and Du Mandong were slightly younger, and they were both female teachers. Jin Yun was proficient in all kinds of weapons and could be considered a weapons expert. However, Jinyan was most passionate about studying all kinds of cold weapons and ancient weapons. Teacher Du was an authority on armor, and he specialized in the field of armor. Speaking of which, his field was monotonous, but Ding Meng was knowledgeable. He knew that if he really specialized in this field, then he would definitely be an authority in materials, forging, design, data, energy, and many other fields. Compared to the teachers in the previous few mainstream fields, Teacher Stephen's field was relatively less popular. Biology, medicine, alien abilities, crystal technology, machinery. Teacher Stephen's field of study was very wide, and he also had a strange hobby. He liked to study outer space and alien races. He was best at plundering information about the Devourer world and the Frogman Kingdom. As soon as Chung Jin joined the group, the six of them argued fiercely. It felt as if they were about to fight. Ding Meng wondered, "Am I that popular?" "Of course," Du Mo replied proudly. "The more outstanding the student, the more the teachers will fight over them. You have to know how old you are this year." "All right, Ding Meng, when is your birthday?" "This." Ding Meng thought for a moment, then replied, "I think I forgot." Du Mo was speechless. "You can even forget this? You are indeed a genius." Shui Yong seemed to be used to the quarrel between the six of them. He packed up his toolbox and left without even saying goodbye. The group of teachers argued for about 5 minutes with red faces. Only then did Hua Bai make a decisive gesture. "Stop! Stop! Stop! Stop arguing! All of you stop arguing. We won't be able to come to a conclusion even if we continue arguing like this." He was the oldest teacher here, and he had a lot of experience. When he said this, everyone quickly quieted down, but they all looked very unconvinced. Huabai said, "I can understand everyone's feelings. It's not easy to find a good seedling, and everyone wants to teach him their own skills. Everyone has repeatedly studied the video that little Mo brought back from Cypress Grove Planet. There are public opinions, and no one can convince anyone that they are right. I suggest that we respect the wishes of the students and leave the choice to Ding Meng. Whichever teacher he wants to learn from, that teacher will be the one to teach him. What do you all think?" "I have no problem with that." Chung Jin was the first to express his opinion. He thought to himself, "I have already tried Ding Meng. If he doesn't choose to train in the thermodynamics department, I will eat this uniform." "All right, I agree." Du Mandong also raised his hand. It would be strange if this Ding Meng didn't know anything about battle armor. "All right, let's see where you all get your confidence from." Jin Yunshin was also full of confidence. Ding Meng's ancient sword was clearly trained. If he didn't choose him, would he choose you freaks? Duan Fengyang and Stephen also raised their hands in agreement. "No problem, let's wait and see." Huabai then said to Du Mo, "Little Mo, you should have introduced our special skills to student Ding Meng, right?" Du Mo nodded. "I have." Huabai turned around and said, "All right, Ding Meng. Now that you have chosen one of the instructors to be your lead teacher, who would you like to choose?" Ding Meng was already prepared. He suddenly smiled and said, "Hello, teachers. My idea is, can I choose everyone?" "This." The six of them were dumbfounded. Ding Meng explained, "Because I want to learn everything." This was definitely not his choice, but little rascal Xiao AI's. In fact, Ding Meng's heart was more inclined towards Chang Jin and Jin Yunshin. To put it bluntly, it was thermodynamics and swordsmanship. As soon as he said this, the six of them were unhappy again. Of course, this time, they were not arguing but questioning. Huabai smiled and said, "Student Ding Meng, if you want all 6 instructors to guide you, the premise is that you have to have a strength." Stephen said, "Yes, the strength you showed on Cypress Planet was indeed very strong, but it's not strong enough to have all 6 instructors guide you together, right?" Chung Jin couldn't help but say, "What's the use of saying all this nonsense? Don't waste time. Hurry up and go to the server for the preliminary test. I really have to hand it to you for wasting your saliva here." Jin Yunshin immediately agreed. Yes. Let's talk about it after the preliminary test. Du Mo, take Ding Meng to the virtual hall. We'll go to the server first." The group of instructors spoke without hesitation. One by one, they rushed to the shuttle ladder. Du Mo took Ding Meng to a side hall on the south side of the first floor. This side hall was quite magical. At first glance, it looked like a small black room. In fact, as soon as they entered, more than 10 colorful rays of light fell from the sky and scanned the two of them back and forth. After only 2 seconds, the system's voice sounded, "Student 008, certification passed. Allowed to enter. Student 043, the newest student, certification passed. Allowed to enter." Duo was already introducing it. This virtual hall was actually the same as the induction hall. They both entered the virtual world of the induction hall through the induction cabin. However, this induction cabin was exclusive to Starlight University. It didn't allow students or instructors to enter the battlecraft combat world without permission. The personal information of students who hadn't been certified was absolutely confidential. Only after passing the certification test, regardless of whether you passed or not, would your information be uploaded to the International Space Network. The induction cabin wasn't ordinary either. Under the guidance of the system's voice, Ding Meng and Du Mo each stood in a designated area. At this time, the steel plate on the floor slowly cracked open. The transmission device below would send different students to different cabins. Ding Meng felt as if he was being transmitted underground. Then his whole body slowly lay down. More than 10 delicate mechanical arms stretched out from all around him and installed all kinds of strange things on his body. There were things like membranes, chips, fibers, liquid metals, and the like. Then, the common equipment inside the induction cabin was installed. Finally, the mechanism closed. This induction cabin was like a spherical cabin. The specific functions were still unclear, but Little Rascal was already speaking. "Wow, this induction cabin is very advanced. I've detected many kinds of energy input devices connected to it. There are crystal energy, origin energy, silver core stones, source cores, inverse source crystals, induction servers. It really has everything. You can use these energy sources at any time." Ding Meng was a little worried. "Little Rascal, if you don't enter hibernation mode, what if the server detects you guys?" Xiao AI also spoke up. "ACT 5570, this problem has been solved. We now have level 4 access to the K virus, and its defense and shielding capabilities have been improved. We just tried to access the server's database, but we found that we still couldn't access it. We could only obtain some basic information. Since we can't access it, it can't really access us either, so you can practice without worry." Little Rascal said, "That's right. I just copied the school's rules. Everyone here has the right to privacy. The server respects every student's privacy. Unless you use a martial technique or take the initiative to say it, no one is allowed to inquire about your cultivation information, including the instructors. This time, you can practice the Diamond Star technique without worry." Ding Meng was overjoyed. As long as he could practice the Diamond Star technique, he wouldn't be afraid of any test. Chapter 284. In the virtual world of the server, what appeared in front of Ding Meng's eyes was the spacious lawn outside Center Number 2. Now, the 6 teachers were standing in a row on the lawn. Their mirror images and their real bodies had not changed much, and they were still wearing the Starlight University uniform. Dumo's mirror image was quickly transmitted over, and he explained, "Ding Meng, the first test is the first time the teachers will test your basic abilities. It is not an official test, but the data will be recorded by the server, so you have to perform well." Huabai said seriously, "Student Ding Meng, according to our previous evaluation and settings, the mirror images of the 6 of us have been reduced to the level of advanced war supremacy by the server. If you could defeat any one of us, you will pass the first test. As for your request to choose all 6 of us, I can make an exception and agree to it. As long as you can defeat any 3 of us working together, we will agree to it. Why don't you prepare on the control panel now? We will officially begin in 5 minutes." Huabai's test had a deeper meaning, because from the evaluation of the Cypresstar video provided by Du Mo, Ding Meng's level should be at the level of an intermediate war supremacy of the thermodynamic system. He also had some of the speed characteristics of the light speed system, and, at the same time, he was good at classical swordsmanship. At the same time, he was at the level of an intermediate war supremacy, and Ding Meng had a lot of foundation. Now that the server had reduced the mirror images of the 6 teachers to the level of advanced war supremacy, it was not easy for Ding Meng to win against one of them. It was almost impossible for him to defeat 3 of them working together. Ding Meng did not activate Little Rascal Xiao AI's vision, because the vision provided by the server was the same as Xiao AI's detection mode. All kinds of people and environments were reflected in 3D and data on the retina, so it was clear at a glance. Moreover, the server also provided an option of support on the control panel. This option covered a lot of things. However, for Ding Meng, the thing he lacked the most right now was a weapon. He was not confident that he could defeat these teachers without a weapon. However, Ding Meng was already used to using the claw blade and the ancient sword. It was impossible for him to adapt to other weapons in such a short period of time. As for long-range firearms, he had never even considered using them. Therefore, after fiddling around in the armory for a while, Ding Meng chose a long sword that was similar to the ancient sword. The sword was labeled as Phantom of the Broken Sky. Presumably, someone had used this thing in Starlight University. The server quickly materialized the sword, and Ding Meng habitually hung it on his waist. When Jin Yun saw his choice of weapon and the other sword's movements, a satisfied look appeared in his eyes. This little fellow has good taste. Ding Meng said in a deep voice, "Teachers, I'm ready." Huabai was a little surprised. "You picked a sword in such a short period of time? Are you sure you're ready?" Ding Meng nodded. "This sword is enough. You're a little arrogant, aren't you?" Huabai secretly criticized. He turned to look at the other 5 teachers. "My colleagues, who would like to take on Ding Meng first?" Cheng Jin could not wait any longer. He walked forward casually. "I'll go first. After all, he's a student of the thermodynamics department. Don't fight with me over him." The other 5 immediately pulled long faces, each feeling a wave of displeasure in their hearts. Cheng Jin took 2 steps forward. His left hand cracked the joints on his right hand. "Hey, Ding Meng, you'd better be careful. Old Cheng will take the initiative. You'll have to withstand it." Ding Meng had already focused and activated his origin. "Please." As soon as he finished speaking, Cheng Jin suddenly slashed out with a mountain-splitting strength hand chop. Even though Ding Meng was mentally prepared, he was still shocked. This hand chop was actually an external release of origin energy. It transformed into the shape of a broom. Its entire body was fiery red, and its outer layer was wrapped in flames. Its volume was even larger than a person's. It looked like a furious chop, but it was actually a slanted sweep. The front of the broom was huge, and it was actually changing. It seemed like it was swaying left and right, as if it wanted to change its attack according to Ding Meng's dodging. The martial arts techniques of the instructors from the famous Federation schools were indeed extraordinary. The martial arts techniques of the pirate leaders in outer space were like child's play in front of these people. Just as the fiery red broom was about to sweep Ding Meng in, Ding Meng suddenly jumped to the side and rolled forward. He had cleverly avoided the broom. However, at this moment, Cheng Jin appeared above his head like a ghost. His palms formed a fiery red force field that pressed down on Ding Meng. Ding Meng had seen this move from Rinzhan before, the Holy Blaze Formation. However, Cheng Jin's Holy Blaze Formation was much more powerful than Rinzhan's. It was like a giant wall that completely locked Ding Meng in all directions. There was no way he could dodge it. Ding Meng quickly exerted his strength. He pushed his palms up and then swung them forward. Cheng Jin was directly sent flying. Ding Meng followed up with a backhand punch, and a muffled boom sounded in the air. The cannon blast blasted Cheng Jin's Holy Radiance Flame Formation into countless sparks. Cheng Jin's feet were unsteady after he landed on the ground, and he took a few steps back before he finally managed to stand still. This time, not only was Cheng Jin shocked, even the experienced and knowledgeable Huabai was stunned. This is probably the limit of a 4-star basic technique, right? Cheng Jin adjusted his collar. He was pleasantly surprised. "Good kid, you've even learned collapsing force and cannon force. I like it. Let me." A deep voice rang out. Duan Fingyang's figure had already entered the field. In Ding Meng's vision, Duan Fingyang's mirror image instantly split into several dozen copies, all of them revolving around him at an extremely fast speed. This was definitely not the light speed type technique afterimage. This was because each of the doppelgangers was a real person, a real person. They didn't move at high speed to form instant teleportation. Telekinesis vision wouldn't lie. The feedback he received was that there were several dozen Duan Fengjiangs. Little Rascal was shocked. Careful, his aura is very strong. Xiao AI said, this should be the effect of a secret manual or grimoire. What was even more shocking was that after these several dozen real people revolved for a while, they split into several dozen more doppelgangers, completely enveloping Ding Meng from all directions. It was basically a purple light barrier. Suddenly, the purple light barrier rapidly closed in on Ding Meng's position at the very center. With a boom, it was as if countless energy bullets had exploded at the same time. The surrounding railings and steps were all blown away, and a deep pit with a diameter of 20 meters was blasted into the ground. Unfortunately, Ding Meng wasn't blown away. His body was completely covered by a pure white, shining diamond mirror image, so he wasn't injured at all. It was also at this moment that a figure shot out from the center of the deep pit. Duan Fengyang had actually burrowed out from the ground. The previous joint attack was just the prelude. The real lethal move was hidden underground. However, when he emerged, Ding Meng's fist was already in the air, waiting for him. This time, it was a 90-degree vertical flame energy rushing fist. With a bang, it collided with Duan Fengyang's fist. The two of them had collided head-on, so it was obvious that Mr. Duan was the one who was at a disadvantage. He was sent flying back into the hole by the force of the punch. The pile of soil at the entrance of the hole quickly collapsed, burying him underneath. The other teachers were pleasantly surprised and amused at the same time. Well done, beautifully done. Cheng Jin was also amused. Good job, kid. Not only are you well-versed in martial arts, but it's also a 5-star technique. You're at the level of an advanced war venerable. Ding Meng somersaulted in the air and landed steadily outside the pit. As soon as he landed, Ding Meng realized that something wasn't right. His telekinetic vision was slightly blurry, and there seemed to be a layer of invisible fog around him. The scenery and people in the distance were somewhat distorted. Xiao AI immediately called the police. It's a very high-end harmful substance. It's a new type of poison. He didn't even need to think about it to know that this poison was secretly released by Mr. Steven. However, Steven was even more surprised than Duan Fengyang, who had just crawled out of the hole. His poison was produced from the devouring world. It had been modified. It was a very high-grade poison. Although it didn't have the same vicious assimilation effect as the devouring world, he imagined that Ding Meng's origin energy would rapidly increase instead of decreasing. The statistics function in his field of vision was already displayed for him. He was sure that his eyes weren't playing tricks on him. Ding Meng's current origin energy index was actually as high as 992,330 points. This was practically at the peak of the advanced war venerable level. There was no way that Ding Meng's origin energy index had risen so high. He felt an unprecedented surge of origin energy surge into the poisonous gas. First of all, the poisonous gas spontaneously combusted. The poisonous gas molecules were ignited by a monstrous wave of heat, burning into colorful flames. The flames floated above the diamond mirror image, and the surface of the mirror image actually began to crack. One could imagine how terrifying this wave of origin energy was. Seeing that the shield was about to shatter, Ding Meng felt a bone-piercing chill. This wave of origin energy was actually mixed with origin energy of the ice element, and it also instantly froze the shield. At this moment, if it weren't for his telekinetic vision, Ding Meng wouldn't have been able to figure out what was going on and would have collapsed. Hua Bai's figure flashed behind him in a flash. He raised his hand and pulled horizontally with his claw. The sky was filled with a bright light. Although Ding Meng wasn't afraid of light speed users, this claw seemed to have created 5 golden cracks in the air. It was like a wormhole in the universe. If this claw had landed on his real body, Ding Meng didn't think that he would have been able to withstand it. This elegant and genteel-looking teacher Hua Bai was actually an expert of heat, ice, and light speed. He really didn't know how this person cultivated. The most important thing was that an advanced war venerable could do this. Not only was Ding Meng shocked, he was also curious. At this moment, he no longer hesitated. All the origin points in his body were fully activated. With a zheng sound, the crown shield was raised. This was currently the strongest defense of his Diamond Star technique. Ding, 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 ding. Hua Bai's claw clawed at the shield, and the sound was as dense as raindrops falling on a plate. Moreover, his figure constantly flashed around Ding Meng. From afar, it looked just like Duan Fingyang's attack. Countless Hua Beis surrounded Ding Meng and unleashed a torrential storm of attacks. Ding Meng didn't counterattack, nor did he retreat. All he had to do now was wait, because he knew that the real fatal blow had yet to come. Chapter 285. The barrage of attacks didn't stop. In fact, they only grew fiercer and fiercer. Every time Hua Bai's claws clawed at the shield, Ding Meng could feel his opponent's origin energy continuously increasing. At first, he didn't pay much attention to it, but now, every time Hua Bai clawed at him, the shield actually began to tremble slightly. Little Rascal was also shocked. This is the crown force field that the Diamond Star technique is so proud of. He actually managed to break it with his bare hands. Ding Meng could also feel that the crown's origin energy was no longer as pure and hard as it had been in the beginning. Moreover, Hua Bai's ice origin energy made him feel quite uncomfortable. Not only did his speed decrease, he could faintly feel the suffocating feeling he had felt during his battle with Lan Bing. His opponent's origin energy was extremely oppressive. Hua Bai's flashing left and right attacks were very difficult to parry. If this continued, it would be bad for him. Ding Meng secretly activated his origin. He was determined to go all out. At this moment, Du Mo, Cheng Jin, Duan Fengyang, and Jin Yun all spontaneously retreated a few dozen meters. They had already sensed the astonishing change in Ding Meng's body. He's not just as strong as he was shown in the video. Cheng Jin was asking Du Mo's eyes were wide open. I can only say that he's improved quite a bit during this period of time. Jin Yun watched the chaotic force field in the distance and muttered. Everyone underestimated him. He already has the embryonic form of a beginner combat master. He's just temporarily suppressed. Cheng Jin clicked his tongue in praise. His index has exceeded 1,000,000 points. If this explosive power isn't from the thermodynamic system, then what other system could it be? Jin Yun curled his lips. He didn't want to reply. At this moment, Ding Meng was tired of dealing with him. But how could Hua Bai not be anxious? He could at least confirm a few things about this kid in front of him. First, he had a lot of combat experience. He knew how to dodge, and, at the very least, he didn't waste any extra energy. Second, Ding Meng's origin energy foundation was extremely deep. His foundation was almost as solid as this group of teachers. If he hadn't seen him in person, he would have judged that this person's origin energy foundation to be at least 20 years of hard work. Thirdly, and most frightening of all, this kid had yet to draw his sword. Without a doubt, Hua Bai was also a person with rich combat experience. He understood this point very well. Sometimes, an enemy who did not make a move was even more terrifying than when they made a move. This was because once the enemy made a move, it would be a fatal blow. And that was when one's own weakness would be exposed. All of a sudden, a black shadow silently swept in from the chaos, like a ghost suddenly appearing. It was just that at that moment, one would feel a little dazed, and by the time one could see clearly, it would be completely too late. Ding Meng had always been wary of this black shadow, because it was a nemesis battle armor, and the person inside, it was teacher Du Mandong. Back on Cyprus' ancient planet, this battle armor had seemed a little immature in Du Mo's hands. After all, Du Mo's strength was limited, but this time it was being personally controlled by an instructor. Its power could not be underestimated. Du Mandong had been observing the fierce battle between Hua Bai and Ding Meng the entire time. Logically speaking, with the poisonous gas surrounding them, Ding Meng's strength should have been weakened. Hua Bai was also firmly entangled with him, forcing Ding Meng to block, parry, and dodge step by step. She had been waiting for the right moment to cut in at the most intense moment of the battle. The Nemesis battle armor's advantage lay in its ambush and assassination. Two steel spikes flew rapidly towards Ding Meng's back. Du Mandong couldn't think of any way that Ding Meng could dodge. These spikes were like two fish bones swimming in deep water, silently swimming towards him. In addition, the spikes were covered in a faint arc of energy. It was obvious that they had been imbued with a sharp origin energy. However, a jaw-dropping scene occurred. Ding Meng suddenly leaned forward, using his shoulder to block Hua Bai's attack. Ding ding. Two crisp sounds rang out, and a large portion of the crown shield's luster dimmed. At the same time, however, the two steel spikes swam past his back, piercing empty air. Ding Meng's right heel hooked upwards. It was as if he was carrying the Nemesis battle armor on his back and throwing her over his shoulder. He had calculated that the battle armor would be waiting for an opportunity to launch a sneak attack. Once the opportunity presented itself, it would not leave any room for retreat and would attack with all its strength. As such, his heel hooked upwards. When he saw this, Du Mo's admiration for Ding Meng came from the bottom of his heart. The way Ding Meng had countered this attack was truly unbelievably ingenious. Most importantly, Ding Meng was just too calm. After dodging Du Mandong's fatal attack, Ding Meng lightly retreated. At the same time, a white light suddenly flashed in the chaos. With a zhung sound, the absolute shadow sword automatically left its scabbard. It spun in a circle towards Hua Bai. This time, it was Hua Bai's turn to block in a flurry. Stephen was very experienced and knowledgeable. At this moment, he couldn't help but cry out. He actually cultivated applied telekinesis. How is that possible? At this moment, the Nemesis battle armor returned from behind Hua Bai, leaping high above Hua Bai's head. The steel spikes once again drew two strange arcs as they chopped towards him. Ding Meng also leaped high into the air. In mid-air, he waved his hand, retrieving the disc and holding the long sword in his hand. Ding Meng and his sword stabbed down vertically at a 90-degree angle. The tip of the sword was aimed straight at Hua Bai's head. This sword was strange, dangerous, fast, and absolute. If one wasn't in it, it would be extremely difficult to understand how strange and terrifying it was. Hua Bai already had a premonition that this was Ding Meng's fatal attack. In a moment of desperation, he couldn't care less. He retracted his claws and retreated quickly. He floated back more than 10 meters. Ding! The long sword stabbed into the ground and suddenly bent. Then it quickly straightened. Ding Meng borrowed the force of this straightening to bounce forward. He spun horizontally in the air, and the sword light also spun even faster. It was like a whirlpool that swept towards Hua Bai. Ding, 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 ding. Hua Bai's palms were covered in a layer of light yellow, shield-like energy. With dazzling speed, he blocked Ding Meng's strangling sword. Finally, the most heaven-defying scene appeared. In the vision of Du Mo and the others, Ding Meng disappeared. He seemed to have become one with the sword. The sword seemed to have turned into a strong beam of light. This strong beam of light, as thin as a needle, passed through Hua Bai's body. Hua Bai's mirror image hummed and turned into a white beam of light. The beam of light closed up and disappeared. This was the scene of the server retracting it. The group of people suddenly opened their mouths wide. Hua Bai was actually insta-killed by Ding Meng's sword. At this moment, Ding Meng's real body appeared 30 meters away. The sword in his hand spun a few times before it returned to its scabbard with a click. Du Mandong seemed to be dumbfounded by this scene. The Nemesis battle armor stood in place without moving. It actually stopped attacking. The beam of light descended from the sky. Hua Bai's mirror image quickly reformed beside Cheng Jin. Cheng Jin turned his head to look at Jin Yun. "Teacher Jin, it's your turn." Jin Yun's gaze also seemed to be a little absent-minded. She suddenly sighed. "I think there's no need to fight anymore, right?" Du Mandong's armor slowly faded into nothingness. She also revealed her real body. There's no need to test anymore. Student Ding Meng has definitely passed. Huabai walked out of the beam of light. He didn't have much of an expression on his face. His expression was very calm. Fellow teachers, is there anything else you want to say? Ding Meng also slowly walked over. Teachers, did I pass the test? You definitely passed the test. Huabai's tone was very emotional. Not only did you pass the test, but you also exceeded it. The 6 of us will be your lead teachers. I will definitely answer your request now. There's no problem. Thank you, Teacher Hua. Ding Meng was actually very calm. He didn't feel much of a sense of accomplishment for being able to insta-kill Huabai. It must be known that these teachers had lowered their strength to the level of a high-level war elder. Others might not be able to tell, but he knew very well how much strength he had used in that last strike. He had used all of his mental power, tremor energy, essence, and smelted energy to achieve an insta-kill. This wasn't something to be happy about. He still had a lot to learn. Jinyan suddenly took 2 steps forward and waved at Ding Meng. Student Ding Meng, I have a few words to say. Ding Meng said, Teacher Jin, please speak. Jinyan took a deep breath and used a meaningful tone to sigh. Listen carefully. Use your qi to control the sword. Spin it into the ground. The sword reaches the spirit of qi. Spin in a circle. Return your qi to the sword. Cross the river on a reed. Do you understand? Ding Meng finally revealed an expression of shock. The technique he had used to insta-kill Hua by just now was the same chant. At this moment, he couldn't help but ask in surprise, so Teacher Jin also knows about Zhao's solitary sword? Jinyan was also shocked. What is your relationship with Elder Zhao? Ding Meng immediately replied respectfully. Teacher Zhao Yu is the teacher who taught me classical sword techniques when I was studying at the Norse Empire's Leiston Academy. Jinyan looked at him in disbelief. After a long time, she sighed. No wonder he would teach you such a profound and complicated sword technique. You are indeed worthy of his trust. I didn't expect you to be able to understand 1 or 2 of it. You could be considered a genius. Everyone looked at each other. They didn't expect Ding Meng to have such a deep relationship. Even Jin Yin seemed to be related to this sword technique. This sword technique is actually not called Zhao's solitary sword. Jin Yin suddenly said something shocking. She seemed to have expected that Ding Meng would ask, so she took the initiative to explain, We'll talk about this later. I'll tell you its origin and essence. You've only learned the form now. The form is similar, but the spirit is not. Ding Meng didn't say much. He took the initiative to step forward and bowed slightly as a sign of respect to Teacher Jin. Only then did Jin Yin turn to Huabai and say seriously, Ding Meng is definitely my student. There is no need to doubt this. You could discuss the arrangements among yourselves. In fact, everyone could see that Ding Meng's sword technique was related to Jin Yun's. It was certain that Jin Yun would teach Ding Meng. However, now that everyone wanted to recruit Ding Meng, it was impossible for them to monopolize him. Therefore, Huabai had to stand up and make the decision. How about this? Everyone will definitely take Ding Meng under their wing. However, I feel that Ding Meng's strength is still immature. The 6 of us will go back to the office and have a small meeting. We will try to draft a basic plan by today and let him practice on his own. I believe that with his talent, he will be able to comprehend it on his own. When he has something he doesn't understand, he will naturally come to us. What do you all think? Cheng Jin couldn't wait. Don't waste your breath. Let's go to the office first. Chapter 286. After exiting the virtual hall, Ding Meng was given a break on his first day of registration at Starlight University. The 6 instructors would focus on researching his characteristics and designing a corresponding cultivation plan. This made Duo very envious. What's there to be envious about? Don't you also have the 6 instructors guiding you? Ding Meng was puzzled. Duo revealed a trace of a bitter smile. That's completely different from you. Starlight University's instructors were divided into different levels. Normally, the instructors would have their own mature teaching plans. These plans would often be loaded into the server for the beginner and intermediate students to study on their own. The advanced students' cultivation plans were naturally not within the scope of these fixed plans. Sometimes the instructors would give a few words of guidance. Only the top students would receive individual guidance from the instructors. Duemo said that he had 6 instructors, but in reality, it was only in name. These instructors were giving face to the Du family. Although Dumo's talent was outstanding compared to Ding Ming, it paled in comparison. Now, the 6 instructors were working together to design a cultivation plan for Ding Ming. This was something that he could not be envious of. Ding Ming's strength was there for all to see. It was very likely that he had not used his full strength yet. There were many things about Ding Ming that he was curious about. The two of them walked out of Training Center number 2. When they reached the shady path outside, Duemo could not help but ask, Ding Ming, how did you improve your origin ability? How did you improve so quickly? This was a question that he had always been curious about. However, Ding Ming could not tell him the truth. I used the inverse source crystal to cultivate. Duemo was stunned. Your body can handle it. Ding Ming suddenly had a bright idea. My physical fitness is grade A1. This was the truth. He had tested it in the Norse Empire. Perhaps his grade had already increased by now. Duemo was suddenly stunned. Right? Why didn't I think of that? First, train your physical fitness, then absorb origin ability energy. How could I have neglected this? Seeing his sudden realization, Ding Ming couldn't help but laugh. This Duemo was fooled by the little rascal again. How could physical fitness be trained in such a peaceful environment like the school in such a short time? The two of them continued walking. At this time, a group of young people came out from the corner of the flower bed. There were about 8 or 9 men and women. Although these people were not wearing uniforms, they all had Starlight University badges on their chests. Obviously, they were also students. Ding Ming's eyebrows suddenly wrinkled. The aura of this group of students wasn't ordinary. Although the aura they emitted was only at the level of a beginner warrior, the depth of the aura was astonishing. Because he had cultivated this way, he was extremely familiar with this kind of aura. Only after repeatedly strengthening and tempering one's origin energy would it produce this kind of aura that was neither sharp nor weak. Duemo lowered his head and whispered, It's the group of people from Center number 1. Be careful. Ding Ming had already noticed. This group of young people couldn't be said to be arrogant and despotic, but the way they walked had a hint of arrogance. He could understand this point. They were all young people, especially the young people in this school, who didn't have a youthful heart. However, the two people at the front were especially eye-catching. This was a pair of lovers. Because they were wearing white couple shirts and jeans, the man had sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes, handsome and confident. The girl's face was charming and beautiful. The two of them walked side by side in this green campus. No matter how picky you were, you couldn't help but admit that this pair was really a good match. However, Ding Ming's focus wasn't on the handsome man or the beautiful woman. From his perception, the man should be a heat element origin ability user, while the girl was an ice element origin ability user. Their aura was several times stronger than the students behind them. They must be the cream of the crop among the top students. Du Mo whispered, Jiang Hai and Sun Shiling, the two most powerful people in Center number 1. The two most likely to win this year's certification exam. Oh, Ding Ming nodded. His gaze fell on Jiang Hai's hand. Jiang Hai's hand was almost the same as his own. Broad, thick, and rough. This person obviously had a lot of experience. While he was sizing up Jiang Hai's gaze was also fixed on his hand, as if he was admiring a piece of art. The two groups of people quickly met. Behind Jiang Hai, a similarly handsome boy walked forward and said with a smile that wasn't a smile, Duemo, there isn't much time left before the certification exam. Instead of using the time to cultivate, you still have the leisure to take a stroll. Hee, it's better to take a stroll with a male student. Interesting. Facing this kind of ridicule, Duemo was indifferent. He didn't even respond and took the initiative to greet Jiang Hai. Hi, long time no see. Jiang Hai revealed a polite smile. Duemo, I haven't seen you for a long time. I haven't heard from you in the past few months. All right, is this a new student? Duemo lightly said, a new student. He just came to our school today. I'll bring him around to familiarize him with the surroundings. Oh, Jiang Hai meaningfully replied. Then we'll see each other later. After saying that, the group of people walked away. Ding Meng then said, "It seems like you didn't spout nonsense. The students from the know. One center are indeed quite strong." He finally understood why that boy had mocked them just now. He guessed that the teachers and students from the number 1 center and number 2 center were in a competitive relationship. None of them were willing to give in to the other. However, it seemed like the students from the number 2 center were relatively weaker. This was because he now knew that Du Mo was ranked first among the top students in the number 2 center. However, he was sure that Du Mo's strength was definitely not as good as that Jiang Hai and Sun Shirling. Jiang Hai looked to be about the same age as Du Mo, but his cultivation level was very scary. This Starlight University was indeed full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Du Mo smiled bitterly. Now you should understand why Teacher Chung and the others are fighting over you, right? Once you beat this group of people in the certification exam, Teacher Chung and the others will also be proud. The number 1 center has been crushing the number 2 center for 6 consecutive years. Teacher Hua is going to retire after teaching this year. Our batch of students can be considered his last batch. I understand. I will try my best. Ding Meng replied calmly. In fact, he was secretly making up his mind. He didn't think much of it in outer space, but now that he was in a famous school in the Federation, he realized that there was always someone better. Little Rascal was right. Don't be complacent too early. After the two of them walked around for a while, Ding Meng had a rough understanding of Starlight University. However, at this moment, the Skylight wrist device finally lit up with a green light. Someone had connected to him and was calling him. After the light screen rose, Cartel's head appeared on it. Kid, you are at Starlight University? Ding Meng immediately said, "Yes, Mr. Cartel." Cartel smiled. "Kid, you have some skills. I have already extracted the blue dazzling gold. Come back quickly." Ding Meng was overjoyed. So fast. Of course it was fast. After Irene had agreed to Dai Yi's request, the Rainbow Gold Group's transport ship had arrived at the Starlight Group's plaza in 3 hours. This efficiency was extraordinary. Cartel was a little confused. In fact, he knew how difficult it was to get the blue dazzling gold, but Ding Meng had managed to get it in just a few hours. He didn't dare underestimate this kid. Presumably, he had paid a high price. Thus, Cartel started working through the night, preparing all the materials in one night. Seeing that Ding Meng had something to do, Du Mo took the initiative to say, "Ding Meng, you can use my shuttle car. It will be very inconvenient for you to not have a personal car in Blue Pole City." Dumo's Airwing shuttle car was a luxury car with a market price of 88 million star credits. With a little money in Ding Meng's pocket, it wasn't even enough to buy a car door. However, he knew that Du Mo was trying to get on his good side, so he didn't stand on ceremony. He reached out and took the crystal key from Du Mo. After all, Blue Pole City was just too big. There were buildings everywhere. If you walked on foot, you might not be able to circle half the city even if you walked for a year. After leaving Starlight University, Ding Meng drove straight to the Starlight Group. He obviously couldn't drive manually. The city's transportation system automatically matched him with a route, and the shuttle car flew on autopilot. 2 hours later, he finally arrived at the Energy R&D Department 9. Cartel had been waiting impatiently for a long time. "Why are you so long-winded?" Ding Meng shrugged helplessly. There was a bit of a traffic jam on the way. Cartel waved his hand. "Follow me." Ding Meng looked expectant. "Is the sword finished?" Cartel led him to the workbench, then pointed at the tabletop. "It's finished." Ding Meng looked down and thought that his eyes were playing tricks on him. In the middle of the workbench was a round, almost transparent bead. It was about the size of 2 fists. There was no doubt that it was the aqua stone. Cartel looked proud. "I added several high-quality liquid metals into it. These are all from the Frogman's technology. No one can make it without the secret method. With the aqua stone as the center, there were many small metal pieces of strange shapes on the tabletop. It was not appropriate to call them metal pieces. Strictly speaking, they were 70 to 80 alloy blades. Some are like willow leaves, some are like chains, some are like earrings, some are like rings, and some are even like hammers. Anyway, no matter what they looked like, they did not look like swords. This is the good sword you were talking about? Ding Ming's eyes widened. Are you sure you're not messing with me? Nonsense. What's with that expression? Cartel was annoyed. I spent so much effort and didn't rest well last night to perfectly integrate all the krypton and platinum into it. Do you think I'm lying to you? Ding Ming's eyelids drooped. But this thing doesn't look like a sword at all. Cartel looked serious. Strictly speaking, it's not just a sword. It's a weapon, and only you can use it. Ding Ming was a little speechless. Then how do I use it? Cartel waved at him again. Come. I'll teach you how to use it. But I have a request. I'll only show you the method once, because it involves some of the principles and methods of making this weapon. I don't want a third person to know about it. I hope you can understand. Ding Ming hesitated. I completely understand, but what if I can't remember it? Cartel spread out his hands. Then there's nothing you can do. You're destined to have no fate with this weapon. Ding Ming wanted to vomit blood. No wonder this old man didn't have a good relationship with the people in the Starbow group. You can't expect people to treat you well when you're so weird. Only someone with a good temper like Li Yu could tolerate him. Chapter 287. Seeing Ding Ming's strange expression, Cartel was a little dissatisfied and said in a deep voice. He said in a low voice, "A weapon to a warrior is like a horse to a knight, armor to a soldier, and starships to a statistician. Not only are they closely related, but they also depend on fate. If you can't even remember how to use it, how can you control it? It's like young men and women like you. Don't you have to be in love with each other in order to create true fate? Many things are based on this principle. You have to follow the rules, right?" Ding Ming sighed in admiration. "Thank you for your advice." Cartel's expression softened a lot. "Get ready. I'll show you when you're ready. We'll start when you're ready." Ding Ming said decisively, "Let's start now." This time, it was Cartel's turn to open his eyes wide. "Are you sure? My memory has a lot of information." "Mr. Cartel, do I look like I'm joking?" Ding Ming replied indifferently. He was indeed confident. Although he didn't have the mental cultivation method of a statistician, his memory ability had increased exponentially during the process of constructing the 8 origins of the Diamond Star technique. Not to mention, he had Little Rascal as a cheat. No matter how hard the method was, even if he couldn't remember it, he could at least copy it, right? Okay, then let's start. Cartel turned on his wristwatch, and a huge screen appeared. You have to watch carefully. Large amounts of words and data appeared on the screen. At the same time, there were also pictures. He thought that Ding Ming would find it difficult, but who knew that Ding Ming stared at the screen and said in a low voice, "It's too slow. Speed it up." "Are you kidding me?" Cartel was a little dumbfounded. "I have 70 streams of information per second. Are you sure you can remember them all?" "Speed it up." Ding Ming waved his hand confidently. "Then I'll speed it up for you." Cartel began to adjust the refresh rate. More than 20 images appeared on the screen every second. Ding Ming was still waving his hand. "Too slow. Keep accelerating." Cartel was annoyed. "I'll give you a quick death." This time, he decided to go all out and directly increase the speed by 200%. The light screen refreshed at a speed that felt like a rocket rising into the sky. This was a speed that ordinary people would feel dizzy just by looking at it. Ding Ming stared at the light screen. "It can be doubled." Cartel didn't doubt him anymore. "You said it yourself. Don't blame me if you can't remember it." Right now, the light screen was no longer being refreshed. Instead, countless numbers of data, codes, lines, words, and images were fused into a strong light that kept flashing incessantly. However, Ding Ming did not even blink. The screen refreshed for 20 minutes before it stopped. Cartel couldn't hold it in anymore. This kid had finished reading the content that would take an ordinary human 4 months to finish in 20 minutes. Cartel really didn't know if he could remember it. "How do you feel now?" asked Cartel. Ding Ming said, I need to go into the induction cabin to digest it for a while. Cartel nodded. He thought that this was a normal reaction. Such a profound creation and usage theory required time to meditate and think. However, he seemed to have thought of something. Oh right, Ding, you can only use the inverse source crystal in the induction cabin 4 more times. Ding Ming turned around in surprise. What? Cartel's expression was a little helpless. This morning, I received a notice from the Star Rainbow Corporation's St. Splinter headquarters that they want to study this inverse source crystal. According to the verbal agreement between you and the headquarters, you have the priority to use it. However, the headquarters will only give you 4 chances to use it. There is no limit to how long you can use it, but the limit is within this year. If you use it all up this year, they will immediately send the inverse source crystal to the St. Splinter headquarters. If you can't use it all up, the headquarters will send someone to collect it next year. Ding Ming immediately fell silent. This was the rhythm of forcing her to fight with her life on the line. Based on the progress of the construction of the 8th origin, if he used the inverse source crystal 4 more times, regardless of the speed, he would definitely not be able to complete it. This meant that he would have to find another way to construct the 8th origin in the future. However, Ding Ming could understand the Star Rainbow Corporation's thinking. With the strength of a war venerable, even if you could absorb its energy, it would probably be very difficult. Now that they're giving you 4 more chances, they're giving you enough face. In a way, this was the Du family and Su Mengqing giving Ding Ming enough respect. Seeing Ding Ming frowning and thinking, Cartel misunderstood. He sighed and said, I'm sorry, I have no right to change the headquarters' decision. If you're lucky enough to use this weapon, consider it a gift from me. Take it as my personal compensation. The old man looked cold, but he was actually very considerate. Ding Ming nodded. Thank you, Mr. Cartel. Cartel also nodded. Go ahead. Let's see if you are fated to use it. Even if Ding Ming did not have fate, Little Rascal and Little AI definitely had it. As soon as Ding Ming entered the elementary consciousness space, Little Rascal activated the virtual imaging function. In other words, it gathered and disassembled everything that Ding Ming had seen and reassembled it in a dynamic image. It was very similar to reconstructing the 7th origin. Of course, the difficulty of this was not comparable to the 7th origin. However, it was still quite difficult for the construction of a weapon. 3 hours later, Ding Ming came out of the sensor cabin. Cartel was cleaning the shelves. When he saw Fong Ning coming to the workbench, he could not help but be surprised. You figured it out so quickly. Ding Ming nodded with a serious expression. More or less, but I still have to try it out to know if it works. That's true. Cartel also expressed his approval. Try it out now. Ding Ming did not reply. Instead, he focused his eyes on the aqua stone. He was using telekinesis to change the shape of the liquid metal. The aqua stone's secret lay in its flexibility. As long as energy was injected into it, it could change its shape. A strange scene happened. Ding Ming opened his right palm and gently pushed it up. All the metal pieces on the table flew into the air. This was the result of hundreds of telekinesis microdots controlling them at the same time. Cartel looked at the metal pieces that did not disperse in the air. He could not help but show a look of anticipation. You really can use it. Continue. Ding Ming had already closed his eyes. At this moment, he was relying on his memory to control the metal pieces. After a series of crisp cracking sounds, the metal pieces formed into sharp feather-shaped blades. There were a total of 13 blades. They were like the feathers of a flying bird. They slowly rotated in the air and drew beautiful arcs in the air. Cartel was excited. That's right. This is the shape. However, this was not the end. Ding Ming raised his palms, and the metal pieces changed shape again. They turned into 8 flying swords. The flying swords formed a sword formation that rotated in the air. The aqua stone slowly rose from the table and flew to the center of the sword formation. With a click, it combined with the blades and looked like a sickle. Ding Ming's palms exerted strength again. The flying swords formed into 4 semirhombus-shaped weapons. Each of them had a strange shape and a stunning appearance. This was the concept art that Cartel had shown earlier. Ding Ming thought that this was a large clamp. Now that it was fully formed, it looked exquisite and sharp. At this time, the aqua stone was summoned back by his telekinesis. When it fell into Ding Ming's hands, it quickly turned into a sword hilt. The four blades combined to form a straight sword. Unlike the ancient swords, this sword was wide and thin. The middle part of the sword protruded out like a rhombus leaf. It felt very heavy when held in the hand and would not give the user a feeling of weightlessness. The sword emitted a light blue luster. However, after origin energy was injected into it, the sword emitted a golden luster that illuminated the entire hall. Even those who did not know about ancient swordsmanship would know that this was a divine weapon. Cartel was not excited. Watching Ding Ming use her telekinesis to float the sword in the air, he quietly said, "This weapon, it can be a sword, a saber, or even a stab. As long as you master it and practice hard, it can change into many different shapes. Once it is used, it can change into many different shapes. Once it is used, it can change into many different shapes. Once it is used, it can change into many different shapes. Once it is used, it can change into many different shapes. Once it is used, it can change into many different shapes. Once it is used, the enemy will be dazzled and unable to find any trace of it. The so-called dream flower mist flower is all about the void." As he spoke, he picked up a piece of metal and threw it into the air. "Try this." The grayish-black piece of metal was thrown into the air. The aqua moon sword whistled through the air and instantly cut it in half. Only then did Cartel let out a long sigh. Do you know what kind of material that piece of metal was cut in half? Ding Ming recalled the aqua moon sword and turned his head to ask, "Is there anything special about it?" Cartel said with a serious expression, "The Shenghao Group's new Hercules armor is made from the Shenghao gold shield. This is the prototype of the 7th generation super alloy. However, you were able to cut it in half with a single slash." Ding Ming was pleasantly surprised. If he had this aqua moon sword on Cypress Planet, he would not have had such a hard time fighting Bai Yu. He would have been able to cut him in half in just a few moves. He did not expect this mirror flower, water moon, to be so heaven-defying. Cartel explained, "The main reason is because of the Krypton gold. At the same time, it can be seen that your origin energy cultivation is quite good. The more profound your origin energy is, the more useful this weapon will be." Ding Ming lowered his head and thanked Cartel. "Many thanks, Mr. Cartel." At this moment, the aqua moon sword changed shape again under the influence of telekinesis. It turned into a curved belt that was tied around Ding Ming's waist. The aqua light stone was embedded in the center of the belt. It did not look like a sword at all. Instead, it looked more like an exquisite belt. Cartel waved his hand and said, "There's no need to thank me. You are the one who has an affinity with this weapon. If you really want to thank me, just do me a favor. This is not difficult for you. Mr. Cartel, please tell me what you want. If I can do it, I will definitely do it." Ding Ming hurriedly lowered his head. After receiving such a good weapon, let alone one favor, even if it was 10 favors, he would agree without hesitation. Chapter 288. After leaving the Energy R&D department, Ding Ming was in a rare state of idleness. He did not want to use the inverse source crystal for the time being. The school and the police had not informed him yet, so Ding Ming went straight to Li Yu's office. He had a good impression of Li Yu. Li Yu was warm and polite, and she was quite nice to him. However, Li Yu's impression of Ding Ming was even deeper. She now knew that this person was not only the boyfriend of Miss Dai, but also an honored guest of several families. He was also an honored guest of Star Rainbow. Therefore, when Ding Ming entered the office, Li Yu warmly greeted him and even took care to get him a drink. Ding Ming smiled and stopped her. "Don't be so polite, Miss Li. I came here to ask you a question. Mr. Cuddles said that he had something for me to pass to him. He did not say what it was or where it was. He just asked me to come to you." Li Yu's smile suddenly became a bit unnatural. Ding Ming stared at her. "Is there a problem?" Li Yu sighed softly. "It's a living material. The location is on planet Thorn in Linda's system." Ding Ming was stunned. Linda's system was the system he wanted to go to but now the military was under martial law. How could he go there? His hometown is Planet Thorn. His family is too poor. When he was admitted to Starlight University many years ago, he couldn't even afford the travel expenses. His family had to raise the money for him. Later, Mr. Cattell came to work in Starlight Group. In the past, he used to send his income to his family in his hometown. But in the past half a year, the planets in Linda's system have been rioting, so there are no more resources to buy. The military doesn't allow ships to enter, so Mr. Cattell bought the resources and asked someone to send them back. I've been handling this matter all this time. Ding Meng said, I see. Then what can I do for him? Liu smiled. Mr. Ting, since you're going to Linda's system anyway, you could take Major Du's fleet to visit Mr. Cuddle's family on his behalf. Ding Meng nodded. Well, I'll do my best to help him. Liu smiled and said, if Mr. Ting needs anything, just let me know. You don't have to worry too much about Mr. Cuddle. The headquarters has informed us that while you are using the inverse source crystal, we will try our best to satisfy all your requirements. I will be the contact person. Ding Meng also smiled. Thank you so much. Liu smiled even more happily. You're too polite. At this time, Ding Meng's wristwatch began to glow green again. This time, the person who appeared on the screen was not Du Mo, but Dai Yi's smiling face. Cousin Ding Meng, we went to the number 2 training center to look for you, but Du Mo said you went to the Xin Hong group. Ding Meng said with a smile. Mr. Hua and the others asked me to wait for their notice. I haven't officially enrolled yet. Dai Yi's face was a little red from laughing. Ding Meng, are you free this afternoon and evening? Ding Meng nodded and said, I'm free. Dai Yi looked a little shy. Someone probably snatched the wristwatch from him. Aaron appeared on the screen with a smile. Little Meng Meng. Ding Meng scratched his head embarrassedly. Hello, Miss Aaron. I received the blue sky order. Thank you very much for your help this time. Aaron smiled slyly. Little Meng Meng, if you really want to thank me, you can stay at the Xin Hong group. We are coming to pick you up now. Ding Meng wondered. Pick me up for what? Aaron smiled, even more happily. Chan Chan, Yi, and I are together. We are going shopping. Since you are free, why don't you come with us? This, Ding Meng, was a straight man. The word shopping did not exist in his mind. Why would he waste his precious time on shopping? However, Little Rascal was excited when he heard this. Shopping is great. Ding Meng, hurry up and say yes. I haven't seen the real Blue Pole City yet. We have worked so hard for so long. Shouldn't we relax a little? Xiao AI was obviously interested in shopping as well. That's right. A CT-5570. You accepted a gift worth hundreds of millions of star coins, and you don't even want to spend half a day shopping with her. How can you justify that? All right. Ding Meng felt that Xiao AI's words made more sense, so he decided to accept them. Miss Aaron, you don't have to come all the way here to pick me up. Just tell me where to go, and I will be there immediately. I have a car. Aaron smiled and said, then hurry up. The location is at the Southern District's Golden 7-Star Shopping Center. I'll send you the coordinates in a bit. Hurry up. You can't expect 3 girls to wait for a guy like you, right? Ding Meng nodded. Okay, I will set off right away. Blue Pole City was divided into 4 major districts: North, South, East, and West. The Eastern District was mainly occupied by large corporations and companies. The Western District was the logistics center. The Northern District was mainly occupied by government affairs, exhibition areas, schools, public affairs, and other organizations. The Southern District was the standard business district and consumer district. As for the residential district, the rich lived along the coast and in the suburbs. They had their own private houses. The rest of the people lived in the buried city. To put it bluntly, the people who lived on the surface were the rich. The poor citizens' biggest wish was to move to the surface. The Golden 7-Star Shopping Center was located at the core of the Southern District. There are all kinds of luxurious shopping centers here. The Golden 7-Star Shopping Center was built on the surface. It was a dazzling 7-story shopping center, like a giant Easter egg that rotated on the surface. Food, clothing, housing, transportation, and entertainment were all in one place. The products sold were also of high quality. There were also quite a lot of people going in and out of the entrance on the first floor. From afar, Ding Ming saw Dai Yi and the other two waiting for him on the pedestrian street. Elegant beauties were always a unique sight in the city. As for Ding Ming, he belonged to the category that was not very eye-catching. However, when Dai Yi happily held his arm as soon as he came up, the eyes of the passers-by immediately locked onto him. Ding Ming felt a little helpless because he had already sensed that many of the gazes were filled with anger. Bastard, what a pile of cow dung. What a pity for this flower. The four of them entered the shopping center together. Dai Yi and the other two looked very happy. They talked and laughed along the way. Ding Ming was a little puzzled. What are you guys buying? You guys look very happy. Dai Yi smiled. Of course we are happy. We're going to buy men's clothes. Ding Ming's eyes widened. Are you guys bored out of your minds? Men's clothes? Seeing his comical expression, Su Qianqian could not help but say, Little Ming Ming, do you think we are the ones who want to wear clothes? We're buying them for you. Ding Ming was even more puzzled. Don't I have clothes here? Dai Yi clearly understood him. In Ding Ming's savage mind, it did not matter if he did not have clothes. As long as his origin energy was running normally, everything would be fine. However, she still took the initiative to explain with a red face. Ding Ming, my mother wants to see you. She also wants Lin Lin and Qianqian to go to her place for dinner. This time, Ding Ming understood. This was the first time he was going to see Dai Yi's mother. Of course, he had to wear something more formal. The Starlight University uniform he was wearing was obviously not good enough. At the very least, it was not stable enough. However, with his aesthetic standards, he could not appreciate any galactic fashion. He might even think that he looked the most handsome in battle armor. Thus, he was quite thoughtful. We will help you choose your clothes. This selection made Ding Ming's head spin. This was because on the third floor of the shopping center, Dai Yi and the other two had shopped for a full 4 hours. They carefully consulted, selected, and compared the clothes in each shop before letting Ding Ming try them on. Ding Ming took off his school uniform and put it on again and again. He felt more tired than cultivating. Moreover, the third floor was extremely large. After 4 hours of shopping, they had not even finished a third of it. Fortunately, Dai Yi finally chose a black hoodie, a pair of light gray pants, and a pair of white sneakers for Ding Ming. This outfit suited Ding Ming. After all, he was too young. Wearing a suit always gave people an indescribable feeling of awkwardness. At this moment, Ding Ming no longer had the mature and steady feeling he had when he was in black gold base. His whole body was brimming with the youthful vitality of a young man. Moreover, he was carrying 4 stacked purple gift boxes in his hands. These were the sour plums that he had specially gone to the 4th floor to buy when Dai Yi and the others were choosing clothes. It was his first time visiting an elder, so he could not possibly be empty-handed, right? Moreover, this was the only gift he knew of. The set of clothes had cost him more than 30,000 star credits. The 4 boxes of sour plums had cost him nearly 90,000 star credits. This trip to the shopping center had cost him a total of 120,000 star credits. Now, he finally had an intuitive understanding of money. It would be a lie if he said that he did not feel the pinch. This was because he roughly calculated that this was about 100 boxes of special-grade polymerized nutrient solutions. Now that Ding Ming and Dai Yi were walking side by side, they really did look like a good match. At least, Ding Ming was no longer ugly. It was just that the belt around his waist was a little eye-catching. Su Qianqian expressed her dissatisfaction. Little Ming Ming, isn't this belt inappropriate for you to wear outside? Ding Ming smiled. It's just a habit. Don't mind it. Of course, he would not tell these beauties that this was not a belt, but a weapon of mass destruction that had to be worn at all times. The sky had gradually darkened when they came out of Jindi's shopping center. The 4 of them flew towards the western district. Dai Yi's mother did not live in the city, but in the suburbs. The shuttle stopped to the foot of a mountain in the suburbs. This place was definitely not as good as the Lang family seaside villa, because there was a 4-story retro building in the open space. It looked a little like the old spaceport in Green Arrow Base, but it was very different from the spaceport. There were many spacious platforms extending from the second, third, and fourth floors, and all kinds of strange things were placed on them. Ding Meng did not expect Dai Yi's home to look like this. Aaron smiled and explained, "Ha, I had the same expression as little Meng Meng when I first came here. I forgot to tell you, Annie Yao's hobby is machinery. She's a very authoritative expert in machinery. She's usually here. This is her research center." Ding Meng sighed. No wonder this place looks so familiar. He had never been here before, but this place was very similar to Mr. Cuddle's Energy Research Center. Chapter 289. As the shuttle car's engine shut down and the door opened, Dai impatiently ran out. A beautiful woman was standing at the entrance of the first floor. She looked very young, about 50 years old. She was smiling as she looked at Dai. Compared to her, Dai felt that she was Dai Yi's elder sister. Moreover, this woman had a different kind of beauty. She wore a uniform similar to the Nuashing Empire's military that had a strong cowboy style. Just like Meng Yan's real body, she had a kind of heroic and valiant beauty. However, she was different from Meng Yan because her face was not as sharp as a knife or axe. Instead, it was abnormally round and sweet. Especially when she smiled, it made people feel especially warm. Seeing this person, Dai quickly went to greet her. "Mom, we're back." "Damn." Ding Meng was shocked. "Auntie, you're so young." Aaron giggled. Annie Yao is 103 years old this year. Ding Meng immediately opened his mouth wide. She was too young. She looked like Dai Yi's sister. At this time, Yao Manru's gaze fell on Ding Meng and the other two. "Lin Lin, Chan Qian, long time no see." The two immediately responded, "Hello, Annie Yao." Dai blushed and pulled Ding Meng over. "Mom, this is Ding Meng." Ding Meng immediately stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Hello, Auntie." The smile on Yao Manru's face became even wider. "I've heard Lily mention you many times. Today, I finally get to see you in person." Ding Meng was a little embarrassed. He scratched his head and said this, "I'm indebted to Miss Dai for her kindness." Yao Manru smiled. "Little Ding, I have to thank you for what happened in Flying Star City. Thanks to you for taking care of little E along the way. Little E has a restless personality. If it wasn't for you, something would have happened." Ding Meng could only be modest. "Auntie, you're exaggerating." Yao Manro waved her hand and said, "Come in and sit. My place isn't very good, so let's just go to the backyard." The first floor was a research hall, but it was different from Cartel's research center. It was full of intelligent robots working here. There were machines, steel plates, alloys, and all kinds of production equipment. Ding Meng could not understand them, so Little Rascal was recording everything. After passing through the first floor, they arrived at the backyard of the building. This was a very elegantly constructed open-air garden. At this moment, night had fallen, and the fragrance of the evening primrose emitted waves of fragrance. The sound of insects chirping could be heard, and this garden had a refreshing tranquility. Sitting on a small white chair made one feel comfortable and leisurely. The butler following beside Yao Manru was also a humanoid robot, completely carved out of the same mold as Dai. Yao Manru was already instructing, "Lanny, go to the kitchen and prepare the ingredients. I will personally cook later." "Yes, madam." The butler accepted the order and left. Aaron and Su Qianqian immediately cheered. Ding Meng was curious again. "Why are you guys so happy?" Su Qianqian said with an impatient expression, "Little Meng Meng, you're lucky. Annie Yao rarely cooks personally. I guarantee that the taste will be unforgettable for the rest of your life." Ding Meng was also looking forward to it. By the time the butler served the snacks and drinks, Ding Meng knew that this place was indeed Dai Yi's home, but it was not the real residence of the Dai family. This was only the residence of Dai Yi and her mother. This was because Dai Yi's father had a total of 5 wives, and Yao Manru was the 5th. The laws of the Holy Grail Federation advocated free love and free marriage. They did not oppose polygamy, but they did not explicitly approve of it either. As long as you had the ability and strength, there were many people who had polygamy, but it was still the same old problem. If a husband had several wives, Then friction between the wives was inevitable. Of the 5 wives of the Dai family, the first 4 had sons. Only Yao Manru had a precious daughter, Dai Yi, so she was naturally treated as the pearl of her father's palm. Unfortunately, Yao Manru's relationship with the other wives had never been harmonious after marriage, so she simply moved to her own research institute. Dai Yi and her mother had a deep relationship, so she also moved out. Big families also had their own internal problems. Just like the Haitian group, the young masters of the Chu family were secretly competing with each other for the right of inheritance. The Dai family was basically the same. Yao Manru and her mother did not place much importance on fame and fortune, so they were naturally not in the mainstream of the Dai family. However, her father doted on Dai Yi very much, so he sent her to Starlight University. Overall, Yao Manru's position in the mainstream of the Dai family was rather low, and correspondingly, Dai Yi's position was also rather low. Dingming also understood why the Dai family sent Dai Yi for the discussion of the Heavenly Wolf Army. Dai Yi was indeed a very suitable candidate. The rest of the Dai family simply disdained to go to a place like the Flying Star City. If they really wanted to go, they would go there for a vacation. However, when they arrived at Dai Yi's house, the topic they talked about the most was the Flying Star City. Aaron was very curious. Little Ming Ming, you were already a high-level warrior at that time, but last night, you easily defeated Yongbang. Yongbang is a war elder. Yao Manru's interest was also piqued. She was also slightly surprised. In fact, she did not have high expectations for Dai Yi's other half, because she had taught Dai Yi a long time ago. You can either find an extraordinary one or an ordinary one. Her impression of Dingming had always been the concept of ordinary. Today, after seeing Dingming, she was even more certain of this idea. A high-level warrior in his 20s was really something in Blue Pole Star City. But now that Aaron said this, she had no choice but to re-examine Dingming. Dingming was only 21 years old this year. A 21-year-old war elder and a student of Starlight University. This was not something that could be underestimated. The most important point was that Dingming was born as a refugee, not nurtured by a large family. Yao Manru did not look down on Dingming's background. On the contrary, she valued this point more. Without experiencing extreme hardships, how could one become a talent? Lily had quite a good eye. Yao Manru could not help but feel gratified. While she was sighing inwardly, Dingming also sighed. Miss Dai, you're already an intermediate warrior? During the year that Dingming left Flying Star City, Dai Yi, who had returned to school, did not fall behind. Her experience in outer space also made her realize the importance of cultivation. Dingming, if I don't work hard, I won't be able to keep up with your footsteps. Your cultivation progress is really too fast. Dingming smiled. I was just lucky to have the help of the inverse source crystal in the Starlight Corporation. Luck also favors those who work hard, Yao Manru said with a smile. Yao Manru said with a smile. Her gaze fell on Dingming's belt. The harder one works, the luckier one gets. Her gaze caused Su Qianqian to misunderstand. She could not help but feel a little embarrassed, so she began to lie. Aunt Yao, this is the belt that Sister Yi gave to Dingming. Dingming is reluctant to take it off. Yao Manru could not help but laugh. Qianqian, you're really... What should I say to you? This is definitely not a gift from Little Yi. Furthermore, this is not a belt. Oh, Su Qianqian and the other two were interested. Then what is Dingming's belt? Yao Manru's gaze flickered. If I'm not wrong, the belt on Little Ding's body is a weapon with a very unique structure. Dingming was also surprised. Aunt Yao has good eyesight. Dai Yi stuck her head out. Dingming, aren't your weapons that sword and knife? Dingming smiled. This weapon is a new one that the Starlight Corporation made for me. Yao Manru also revealed a surprised expression. Only a few people in the Starlight Corporation can make personal weapons. Is it the Blue Moon branch? Dingming nodded. Yes. Yao Manru said, so it should be Cartel? Dingming said in surprise. Aunt Yao also knows Mr. Cartel? Yao Manru did not answer. Instead, Dai Yi said, Dingming, Mr. Cartel, and my mother were classmates in Starlight University. Later, They worked together in Starlight University. Ding Ming was stunned. Such a coincidence? Yao Manru nodded, a trace of regret appearing on her face. It's a pity that he is so talented. However, it's also a good thing that he was able to create this kind of blue radiant gold weapon. I never thought that little Ding would actually gain his favor. Seeing that her expression was not quite right, Ding Ming carefully asked, "Why is it a pity that Mr. Cartel is so talented?" Yao Manru sighed. Back then, when he was at Starlight University, he was a famous genius student who was proficient in many fields of knowledge. The school also treated him as a top student and focused on nurturing him. He and our classmates, Ding Ming quietly listened. In fact, he was also very interested in the old man because he had a feeling that the old man was not an ordinary person. When Starlight University accepted him, he didn't even have the money to take a spaceship. Later, it was said that all his relatives and friends pooled money together to pay for his travel expenses. After he entered the school, he was very diligent, coupled with his outstanding talent. It only took him 2 years to enter the top ranks. His mentor was Starlight University's famous Misty. In that year's certification exam, he took first place among the non-combat origin ability users. In the end, he was recommended to work in the Starlight Group. Moreover, he directly went to the headquarters of Starlight Sacred Splendor and took up the position of research and development. It could be said that his future was limitless. Ding Ming frowned. According to what Aunt Yao said, Mr. Cartel should be very popular. However, his current appearance is very strange. It was normal for him to have such doubts. If the old man was really a famous person in Starlight, he would not have such a strange and slovenly appearance. Yao Manru glanced at him and sighed softly. While Cartel was studying at Starlight University, he met his first love. His girlfriend was also a famous person in Starlight University. At that time, she was ranked 3rd on the campus bell ranking. She admired Cartel's talent very much, so the two of them walked together. For a time, they became a legend in the school. When she said this, Ding Ming and the others had a bad premonition in their hearts. Something bad was going to happen. Chapter 290. Sure enough, Yao Manru picked up her cup and took a sip before saying, "Actually, people have 2 sides." Dai, he couldn't help but ask, "Are you referring to the good side and the bad side?" Yao Manru said, "That's not it. The 2 sides I'm referring to is that if a person's strengths are too obvious, then their weaknesses are just as obvious. Cartel's innate talent can be said to be extremely astonishing. He's the kind of genius who can draw inferences from one case, but his philosophy towards the opposite sex is obviously inferior to his innate talent." Dai, he muttered to himself, "Is there a problem with this girlfriend of his?" Yao Manru shook her head and said, "Cartel agrees to everything his girlfriend requests. Sometimes he doesn't care about the cost. Even though his salary at the Star Rainbow Group isn't cheap, he spends all of his income on his girlfriend. For a long time, he hasn't sent any money back to his family." Although her reply was tactful, how could Dai not understand the logic behind it? It was obvious that that woman's expenses were very high. Perhaps she was a vain person. On the surface, his mother seemed to be explaining things to Ding Ming, but in reality, she was warning herself not to look down on him because of his background. Yao Manru's expression suddenly became serious. Actually, Cartel is highly regarded by the upper echelons of the Star Rainbow Group. Back then, the Federation's Night Pearl 1 project was developed by the Star Rainbow Group, and, as a senior engineer, Cartel also participated in it. Back then, he and I were partners, and we were researching the core of the entire board, the curvature technology. However, this technology was suddenly stolen before it could be released. Stolen? Ding Ming couldn't help but ask. With such high-end technology, the Federation's security level is probably unprecedented, right? How could someone steal it? Of course not. Even if dozens of Origin Energy generals worked together, they wouldn't be able to take half a step into the research facility. Yao Manru suddenly revealed a bitter smile. However, If the fortress was breached from the inside, then that might not necessarily be the case. Ding Ming also understood. Someone stole the technology from the inside. Dai Yi's tone immediately became indignant. Mom, you always refuse to talk about this matter. So it was your classmate's girlfriend who stole the technology? Yao Manru waved her hand. That's not stealing. At that time, the technology was still in the experimental stage and had not truly taken shape. However, when it fell into the hands of the Shenghao group, the Shenghao group was one step ahead of the Starry Rainbow group. It was precisely because of that major accident that the development of the Starry Rainbow group was suppressed by the Shenghao group. Because the technology had fallen into the hands of the Shenghao Corporation, the Federation had put a lot of pressure on the Starry Rainbow Corporation. The upper echelons of the Starry Rainbow Corporation were furious and pursued the relevant personnel, and the first person to be investigated was her mother. It was also at that time that her father used his influence in the upper echelons of the Federation to protect Yao Manru, and Yao Manru would no longer be able to participate in the research and development of large-scale projects in the Federation. She returned to planet Blue Moon to live alone, and many years later, she married her father. On the other hand, Cartel received an even more severe punishment. The Starbao headquarters ordered him to hand over all the research results and was prepared to send him back to Starlight University. Then, the school would send him back to the Linda department. However, an extremely famous upper echelon of the Starbao headquarters cherished his talent very much and could not bear to bury him. He went against the majority and barely protected him. However, from then on, he was not allowed to participate in the core research of the Starbao Corporation. Yao Manru sighed again. Actually, this isn't the most serious thing. The worst thing is that after Cartel returned, his girlfriend threw herself into someone else's arms. Huh? Ding Ming and the other three were shocked. How could this be? Yao Manru sighed. I'm not too sure about the specifics. I only know one thing. His girlfriend's surname is Yong. You should know this person. His name is Yong Kuan. Dai immediately stood up from her chair. She was extremely angry. Isn't that Yong Bang's father? So it turns out that the rumor that the Yong family is backed by the Shenghao group is true. He has inherited his father's glorious tradition and likes to steal other people's things. Little E. Yao Manru's expression was slightly serious. Dai didn't dare to argue and immediately lowered her head and sat back down. Ding Ming muttered to himself. Mr. Cartel was demoted back to the Blue Moon branch because of this? Yao Manru sighed. It's not just that. In the end, his girlfriend didn't marry Yong Kuan. Instead, she went to the Norse Empire with a rich man who was over 100 years old. She didn't even leave a word for him. Cartel went to the Empire to look for her once. Of course, there was no result at that time. However, after Cartel returned, his temperament changed. He became crazy, irritable, and easily angered. He offended all his colleagues in the headquarters. This time, Ding Ming also knew what happened. In the end, the old man was demoted back to Blue Pole Star City. When the higher-ups from the headquarters came to inspect the situation, he was directly sent to the cold palace of the 9th Energy Research and Development Department. At that time, the higher-ups who admired him very much had probably lost their patience and were completely disappointed in him. No wonder he said that he would stay in the research center and not go anywhere. Perhaps he had lost confidence in himself because he no longer had the motivation to work hard. He would rather lock himself up in the cold steel hall and die alone than face the disdainful faces of the outside world. If there was still a trace of motivation for him to continue working, it was undoubtedly his concern for his hometown. Therefore, he had to send money back on time every quarter. He still couldn't let go of the people there, but he didn't dare to see them. He was afraid of being ridiculed and looked down upon. Ding Ming finally understood why Mr. Cartel had such a strange look on his face. He also finally understood why he only cared about Liu in the Blue Moon branch and ignored everyone else. Liu must have taken care of him a lot. He even entrusted Liu to buy supplies for him. As for why Cartel was willing to make this Catoptera deflection sword for Ding Ming, it was not because he was excited to see the Krypton Platinum, but because he was just like Teacher Zhao in the Norse Empire. They had no other hope. They hoped that the Zhao family's lone sword and catoptric deflection sword would be developed in the hands of the fated person, Ding Ming. If one day Ding Ming achieved something great, it would be a victory for them. Thinking of this, Ding Ming took a deep breath and slowly stood up. He walked to the center of the open space and slowly channeled his telekinesis. At this moment, the catoptric deflection sword on his waist made a crisp sound and turned into countless golden sharp blades that danced in the air. It was like a brilliant galaxy flowing above the flower bed. It was brilliant and magnificent. Wow! Dai Yi and the other two exclaimed, "So beautiful!" Yao Manru also looked at this beautiful scene and said quietly, "As expected, this is catoptric deflection." Ding Ming's wrist suddenly grabbed back. The sharp blades quickly retracted and turned back into the belt on his body. Dai Yi, Aaron, and Su Qianqian opened their beautiful eyes wide. So there was a reason why Ding Ming didn't take it off. This weapon was simply too mysterious. However, Ding Ming's attitude became very respectful. "Auntie, you know the name of this weapon?" Yao Manru looked at him and smiled. Her smile was very gratified. "Little E, the person destined to be with you might really be you. Did you know? When I left the Starlight Corporation's headquarters, I gave Cartel the memory of the weapon's creation as a gift. It was a memento of the days we worked together." This, Ding Ming was stunned again. Wasn't this too much of a coincidence? Yao Manru smiled and said, "Actually, many things are fated. You should know what kind of special requirements this weapon has for its user. Origin ability users like you are very rare. That's why I told Cartel that if you meet the fated person one day, I'll have to trouble you to create this weapon. It won't be a waste of your abilities." Ding Ming immediately puffed out his chest. "Auntie, please don't worry. I definitely won't let Mr. Cartel down." Dai Yi's face immediately turned red. This was because these words seemed to imply something else. It sounded like Ding Ming wouldn't let Dai Yi down. Yao Manru gently patted Ding Ming's shoulder. "When we parted, Cartel also gave me a gift. Do you want to see it?" This time, before Ding Ming could say anything, Dai Yi became excited. "Mom, is it that thing you always fiddle with?" Yao Manru had already turned on her wrist device, and a screen appeared. This screen was quite large, and it was similar to the memory that Cartel had shown her. Densely packed data was quickly refreshed. Dai Yi and the other two couldn't see it clearly, but Ding Ming's memory was astonishing. Moreover, with Little Rascal and Little Love's help, Ding Ming was able to scan through 10 lines at a glance. After scanning for about a minute, Ding Ming sighed and said, "Auntie, you and Mr. Cartel are both geniuses. It's really a loss for the Starlight Corporation to give up on you too." Yao Manru smiled and turned off her wrist device. "Let's not talk about the past. The Shenghao Corporation has always done things to the extreme. The Hercules battle armor that they are currently developing is not low in value. The battle armor masters that they are recruiting this time are also top talents in the Federation. I am a student that Starlight and Starlight have jointly nurtured. Even though I have left Starlight for many years, I still want to do something for them. It can also be considered as repaying my mentor for nurturing me in the past." Ding Ming didn't say anything else. He lowered his head slightly as a form of respect for Dai Yi's mother. At this time, the housekeeper appeared behind Yao Manru. "Madam, all the ingredients have been prepared according to your instructions. Please give us your instructions." Yao Manru waved at the 4 young people and smiled. "All right, it's time for dinner. If you have any questions, we can continue after dinner." "Yay!" Dai Yi and the other two immediately cheered. Chapter 291. It was still a silent night, and the conference room of the Haitian group's headquarters was unusually quiet. Chu Yifeng, Jia Hua, and Fel sat at the conference table, all 3 of them motionless. Chu Mingliang sat at the head of the conference table, staring intently at the information sent back by the photon computer. He did not speak, and no one dared to speak first. Lan Bing, who was dressed in a lady's suit, stood beside him, like an ice sculpture that would never change. She always had that kind of cold expression on her face. The atmosphere in the room was particularly oppressive, but Chu Yifeng did not dare to ask. The old man had suddenly called him back to the headquarters. Obviously, there was something to tell him. After all, he had been treated coldly for a few months, and it was almost enough. After an unknown amount of time, Chu Mingliang reached out and wiped the holographic screen, gently closing the photon computer, and asked Chu Yifeng with a happy face, "How was your vacation?" Chu Yifeng was already mentally prepared, and quickly replied, "According to your instructions, I went on a trip to planet KV-303 and then donated 45 million star coins in the name of the Federation's charity organization. Now, the construction of the Green Arrows base has been greatly upgraded." Chu Mingliang did not immediately answer him, but instead asked, "Do you know where Dingming is now?" No matter how mentally prepared Chu Yifeng was, he never expected the old man to ask this question. Unfortunately, he could only shake his head. Dingming brought back a batch of very important strategic materials for the Starbow Group on Cypress Goo Planet, and is now a level 3 VIP of the Starbow Group. At the same time, he has entered the Blue Pole Star City on Blue Moon Planet, officially becoming a citizen of the Holy Grail Federation. He has also entered Starlight University and is about to participate in the annual certification. When he said these words, Chu Mingliang did not have any expression, and he tried to use the simplest words to describe the direction of the matter. Chu Yifeng also did not have any expression, but Jia Hua's head was covered in dense sweat, because only he knew the hidden meaning of Chu Mingliang's words. If he did not act on his own initiative to ask his cousin to contact the Extreme Pirate Force, the tragedy of planet KV-303 would not have happened. If it were not for the tragedy of planet KV-303, Dingming would not have gone to Bogger Planet. If it weren't for the incident on Cypress Goo, things would never have turned out like this. The current situation was that Dingming, whom they had not taken seriously in the past, had now become a major threat to them. Furthermore, with Dingming's current status, he was no longer someone they could threaten or tempt. The Starry Rainbow Group and Starlight University were now two protective talismans on Dingming's body. Now that he was in the Federation, anyone who wanted to touch Dingming would not dare to ignore the Colossus behind him. The instigator of all this was him, Jia Hua. It was him who caused this mess in a moment of absent-mindedness. Lan Bing was standing in front of Jia Hua at this moment, but he didn't dare to look at her at all. This beautiful face that he yearned for the most, when really close, he lowered his head instead. Suddenly, he found that the old man was staring at him. Anyone who was stared at by Chu Mingliang would have a strange feeling. That was, you could only be stared at by him. You couldn't escape his gaze, even if you wanted to. This feeling was really terrible. Chu Mingliang looked at him and slowly said, "When your grandfather, Jia Yuan, and I founded Hai Tian, he was a person who paid special attention to principles. It was these principles that made Hai Tian what it is today." Jia Hua didn't dare to defend himself. He could only slowly get up and stand next to the conference table. Chu Mingliang continued, "Later, it was your father, Jianan. He valued reputation and honor more. Hai Tian is now ranked 23rd in the Federation. Jianan also contributed greatly to that. It's a pity that both of them died too early. It's a pity." His tone was full of pride and nostalgia, but it produced an indescribable chill in Jia Hua's ears. He still didn't dare to speak. He just knelt down with a plop sound. Chu Mingliang was still expressionless. "I always feel that the younger generation should be much stronger than the older generation. What do you think?" Jia Hua didn't dare to answer. He now knew that Chu Yifeng didn't blame him for the incident on planet KV-303, but that didn't mean that Mr. Chu didn't know. Every person, everything, and every item in Hai Tian Group couldn't escape Mr. Chu's eyes. He didn't believe in the past, but now he finally understood. He could only wait for the severe punishment. Chu Mingliang suddenly got up and began to pace around the conference table. "Feng, you should have heard the recent news about Linda, right?" Chu Yifeng nodded. "I heard." Chu Mingliang sighed. "The Holy Grail Federation has been peaceful for too long. Only the outer space turmoil can train people. Now that the Federation is also in turmoil, if nothing unexpected happens, another group of young talents will emerge. Do you think you are such a person?" Chu Yifeng was indeed a smart person. He immediately frowned. Old man, is this Ding Meng going to Linda? Chu Ming Liang said, it's possible that he will go, and it's also possible that he won't go. There is no information about Ding Meng's next move. This was really a very difficult sentence to understand. Phil took advantage of his age to muster up the courage to ask, Old man, since this Ding Meng is currently taking the qualification exam at Starlight University, it is very likely that he will be chosen by a large consortium like Xinhong Group after passing the exam. It is even more likely that he will develop in the Xinhong Group in the future. Chu Ming Liang glanced at him. If that's the case, Chu Lei can easily invite Ding Meng from Blue Polestar City to our Hai Tian Group. But do you think Ding Meng is the kind of person who can be easily invited? Now everyone understood. After the various events of this year, everyone had a certain degree of understanding of Ding Meng. Other things aside, Ding Meng was able to kill so many people on Cypress Goo and escape safely. This alone was enough to prove that not only was Ding Meng not easy to invite, but he was also very difficult to deal with. If Chu Lei could easily bring him to the Hai Tian Group, then this kind of person was no longer worthy of the old man's attention. In fact, it could even be said that he was very easy to deal with. Chu Yifeng was puzzled. I can't think of any reason why Ding Meng would want to go to Linda. Good question. Chu Ming Liang nodded. Do you know why I sent you and shown you to the K Galaxy? Of course, Chu Yifeng knew that the dangerous and complex environment in outer space could truly stimulate people's growth. Staying in the luxurious city, you would never be able to learn those skills that you were proud of. Right now, Linda is completely a furnace. Only in a furnace can gold be refined. Chu Ming Liang said unhurriedly. Chu Ming Liang said unhurriedly. His tone was filled with emotion. Every era has its own trendsetters. These trendsetters were never trained in a peaceful environment. What kind of person you want to be is entirely up to you. Chu Yifeng finally understood. No matter what Ding Meng was doing now, as the situation in Linda became more and more intense, Ding Meng would have to go there sooner or later. This was not a matter of reason or event. This was just like a circle of people. Every group of people of different levels would naturally appear where they were supposed to appear. For example, it was almost impossible for university students to appear in the refugee camps in outer space. Moreover, as long as you were a student, you would have to go and face the qualification exam. Ding Meng wanted to go to Linda for the same reason. This was the focus of the Federation this year. Even if he did not want to go, sooner or later, he would be forced to go because of various circumstances. Because he was a person of this level, he belonged to this kind of place. This was a very philosophical thought. This kind of thinking was also a law of development. Only someone like Chu Ming Liang, who had lived for centuries and seen too much, could have such an understanding. At this moment, Chu Yifeng could not help but admire him. He took the initiative to say, I will prepare and leave immediately. Chu Ming Liang nodded. This is why I asked the three of you to come here today. This time, there is no room for failure. Either you come back safely, or you never come back. Hearing this, Jiehua felt as if he had been pardoned. He quickly stood up. Thank you, Mr. Chu, for your generosity. Chu Yifeng, on the other hand, felt an unprecedented pressure. He didn't expect the old man to value Ding Meng to this extent. Just the three of you are definitely far from enough. Chu Ming Liang's tone changed again. This time, Miss Lan Bing will be in charge of everything. Everyone will listen to her orders. Chu Yifeng and the other two raised their heads. Their eyes were full of surprise. Unfortunately, Lan Bing was still as cold as ever. Chu Ming Liang stared at Chu Yifeng. Do you have a problem? Chu Yifeng immediately lowered his head. No problem. Chu Ming Liang waved his hand. Then hurry up and prepare. The three immediately stood up and walked towards the door of the conference room. When the door was closed, Chu Ming Liang turned to Lan Bing. You should be familiar with Linda. It's just that the situation is a bit more complicated this time. Lan Bing nodded. I know what you mean, Mr. Chu. Chu Ming Liang was finally interested. Let's hear it. Lan Bing said slowly. I remember you once said that sometimes the birth of a big event is often brewed by many small things. In the same way, the direction of a big event is often changed by small people. It's different from the dead silent star. Young Master Feng and I went to Linda's department this time, so we became small people. Chu Ming Liang's eyes were full of praise. This is one of the reasons why I want you to go. Feng is not as good as you in this aspect. Lan Bing continued, but from the information we have collected so far, Ding Ming's strength seems to be on par with mine. With just this group of people, we will die. Chu Ming Liang nodded. That's right. If you go rashly, you won't be able to come back alive. But I want you to come back alive, so I naturally have someone to recommend you. Lan Bing was very respectful. Thank you, Mr. Chu. Chapter 292. Ding Ming was currently practicing the sacred Yang Tiger Palm on the spacious lawn of Starlight University's Kajia server's intranet. All around the lawn, the images of the 6 instructors were constantly appearing and disappearing. Each of the instructors had all sorts of recording devices in their hands. They were recording the data related to Ding Ming's cultivation and correcting them one by one. With a scientific and systematic training method, Ding Ming's cultivation could be said to have advanced by leaps and bounds. During this period of time, the 2 instructors who had helped him the most were Hua, Bai, and Cheng Jin. This was because they had a unique understanding of the essence of martial arts. Ding Ming understood these tricks, and naturally, his martial arts improved by leaps and bounds. For example, this sacred Yang Tiger Palm. Back in Meteor City, Jia Mao's palm had transformed into the image of a tiger's head. Now, Ding Ming's palm, combined with collapsing force, practically transformed his entire body into a tiger's body. It was like a hurricane had swept out. Jia Mao's sacred Yang Tiger Palm was on a completely different level compared to Ding Ming's. Little Rascal said, according to our standards, you can now be considered an intermediate warrior. Xiao AI said, there's still 32 days until the certification exam. According to my calculations, before the exam, you should go cultivate inside the inverse source crystal and try to break through. Ding Ming obviously agreed with this plan. Time for cultivation in school was quite tight. Even though he could be considered half a cultivation genius in the eyes of the 6 instructors, the amount of time and effort required to reach the 8th origin was simply too great. If he wanted to achieve good results in the certification exam, he absolutely could not be careless. By now, Ding Ming had a rough understanding of the contents of the certification exam. It was divided into 3 stages. The first stage was the basic certification. Just like in the Norse Empire's Kajia server, Origin Energy Index, physical fitness, martial arts, reaction speed, and so on were tested. The specific contents of these tests would not be released to the public, but the system would display them in the form of points. A typical example would be Origin Energy Index. War Reverends were generally able to break through 100,000 points, so they would have 100,000 points. Just this alone was enough to distinguish the top students from the top students. The second stage was personal ability. After the first stage, the system would generate a comprehensive index ranking. According to this ranking, you could choose opponents of the same strength to fight. After that, your ranking in the second round would be determined. After all, the basic score was one thing, and the use of ability and strategy was another. The third stage was the actual combat stage. All the students would be arranged on the same map. The one who survived to the end or completed the designated target would pass the exam. The one with the highest score would be first. Cheng Jin had already told him that this exam had attracted a lot of attention from the outside world. The top 3 students of this year would be rewarded with secret manuals according to their respective characteristics. This was something that Ding Ming had always dreamed of. He had already learned about it on his wrist device. This thing was not sold on the dark net. He had also asked the old man, and the old man had told him that if he really wanted it, then he would have to cultivate in school. In the future, when he entered the Starry Rainbow group and was recognized by the higher-ups, he would definitely have it. However, this road was too long. It was rare to have such a stable environment, so it was better to improve himself. When he came out of the virtual hall, night had already fallen. The day had passed just like that. Ding Meng met Jin Yun in the hall on the first floor. Now, the 6 teachers were very fond of him. Jin Yun even took the initiative to say, "Ding Meng, have you memorized the sword moves that I showed you?" Ding Meng scratched his head in embarrassment. "I'm sorry, Teacher Jin. These sword moves are too profound. I still need to study them slowly." Jin Yun smiled. "It's okay. This is a very normal process. You don't have to practice according to my demonstration. You can also explore according to your own understanding." Ding Meng said, "By the way, Teacher Jin, didn't you say that Teacher Zhao's sword technique was originally called Zhao's lone sword? Then what was it called?" Jin Yun sighed. "Now that you mention it, it's really, how should I put it? Your teacher Zhao Yu used to fight side by side with us in the Devouring Realm. This sword technique was passed down to him by a senior. After he improved it, it was named Zhao's lone sword. Later, old Zhao was poisoned by the Devouring Realm and was sent back to the Empire. However, I've seen the principle of this sword technique before. So when you showed it that day, I immediately realized that your sword moves were exactly the same as old Zhao's back then." Ding Meng thought to himself, "So that's how it is. Has Teacher Jin been on the battlefield before?" Of course. At the mention of this, Jin Yun's face was filled with pride, but she was also filled with emotion. It's been so many years. Those days are really nostalgic. By the way, how is old Zhao doing in the Empire? Ding Meng immediately fell silent. He thought to himself, Teacher Zhao is definitely not as glorious as you. He's a famous and promising teacher in a famous school like Starlight. Teacher Zhao is just spending the rest of his life on a remote and backward planet. He's probably retired this year, right? Seeing his somewhat dejected expression, Jin Yun also understood that old Zhao must have had a hard time after retiring. She could not help but comfort him. Ding Meng, cultivate well. Don't let down old Zhao's feelings for you. Your fame is the greatest comfort for old Zhao. Ding Meng nodded. I'll definitely master this Zhao's lone sword. Jin Yun smiled. All right, I won't talk to you anymore. I still have a party tonight. Look, your girlfriend is here to pick you up. Ding Meng looked up. Under the street lamp outside the hall, Dai, he was standing in the shade, waving at him. Looking at her smiling expression, she seemed to be very happy. Dai, he was not a top student, so she naturally could not enter training center number 2. Thus, she could only wait outside. In addition, Ding Meng's cultivation time was very long, so she would come here every 5 days to wait. Dai's current progress was also quite rapid. She was about to break through the intermediate level and would soon enter the ranks of advanced warriors. Back when he was at Black Gold Base, Ding Meng did not have a deep enough understanding of this. This was because for an ordinary person to become an origin ability user in outer space, this was a natural chasm, and it would only get harder and harder. In fact, for Starlight students, going from beginner to intermediate and then to advanced was not difficult at all. The real difficulty lay in one's experience. It was the same principle. What they learned in school was basically what they saw in the virtual world. Without experiencing a real life and death battle, one would not have the will to fight and survive in desperate situations. Willpower was something that most origin ability users knew how important it was in cultivation. Ding Meng, let me tell you a piece of good news. Dai smiled and held his arm. Ding Meng asked curiously, Oh, what kind of good news? Dai smiled and said, Miss Lang Ling has already picked up Senior Shuiyin and Senior Ren Tianlan. They are now on their way back and are estimated to enter the Azure faculty in 10 days. This was indeed good news. The strange poison in Aunt Shuiyin and Ren Tianlan could finally be completely cured. Dai continued. Mr. Lang has already invited everyone to his place. He specifically asked me to tell you that you must show up. Ding Meng smiled and said, Of course I will go. His smile suddenly froze. Dai was puzzled. What's wrong? Ding Meng stopped in his tracks and looked straight into the depths of the shade of the trees on campus. It was normal that Dai couldn't see because it was nighttime. The street lights in the school were soft and golden, so it was difficult for people with poor eyesight to see far away. However, Dai soon saw clearly that there was a large group of people walking towards them. This group was Jiang Hai and Sun Sherling's group of students from Center Number 1. Unlike the last time, there were a few more familiar faces in this group: Mu Hua, Yongbang, and Dongfang Lian. When he saw that Dingmeng was also at Starlight University, Yongbang's face turned ugly, especially when he saw how close Dai Yi and Dingmeng were. He couldn't help but say, "Brother Jiang, it's that kid." Jiang Hai was puzzled. "Are you sure you didn't recognize the wrong person? Didn't you see this guy last time? He was with Du Mo and just came to our school to register." Yongbang said angrily, "He's a refugee. He has no background at all." When he said this, Jiang Hai didn't look down on Dingmeng. Instead, he paid more attention to him. A refugee with no background could actually become a student of Starlight University. Furthermore, he appeared here twice. Could this kid be a student from Center Number 2 or Number 3? While he was still puzzled, a surprised voice suddenly sounded from the crowd. "Xiao Yi, why are you here?" Dai Yi was also stunned. "Third brother, why are you here?" This third brother was naturally Dai Yi's half-brother, Dai Ningxing. He was ranked third in Dai Yi's generation and was also a student from Center Number 1. This year, he had a high chance of passing the certification exam. However, Dingmeng didn't have a good impression of this Dai Ningxing. This was because the handsome man who mocked Du Mo the last time they met was this Dai Ningxing. Dai Ningxing had already pulled his sister aside and scolded her softly. "What's wrong with you? Yongbang is such an excellent boy, and you didn't want him. Why did you have to find an interstellar refugee with no background? Why are you so stupid? Come with me." Dai Yi shook off Dai Ningxing's hand. "Dingmeng is a student of our school and a citizen of the Federation. Why are you guys always like this? Why are you discriminating against others?" "I'm discriminating against him?" Dai Ningxing replied disdainfully. "If I'm discriminating against him, it's his honor. I'm doing this for your own good. If you want to pick a boyfriend, you should at least pick someone of equal social status, right? You don't have to explain it to me. Muhua Yongbang already told me that this kid came from a refugee camp. So what if it's a refugee camp?" Dai Yi's face darkened. "You think you're so great, right? Then do you have the ability to beat him? Otherwise, you're worse than a refugee. You?" Dai Ningxing was angered by her weird logic. "Xiao Yi, is this how you talk to your brother? Is this how Annie Wu taught you to treat your family?" Dai Yi was instantly annoyed. "I treat everyone like this. Don't interfere in my business. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude." Chapter 293. Dai Yi and Dai Yi were still arguing when Jiang Hai walked toward Dingmeng. He took the initiative to extend his hand and said, "Hello, student Dingmeng. I'm Jiang Hai. Nice to meet you." Dingmeng also extended his hand and said hello. Their handshake was not a secret competition as others had imagined. On the contrary, Jiang Hai's attitude was quite friendly and did not seem any different from usual. The two of them also let go after a symbolic handshake. Jiang Hai smiled politely. "Miss Dai has always had good taste. Even Yongbang failed to pursue her, but she's with you. I think you should be practicing in Center 2, right?" There was nothing wrong with what he said, but Dingmeng felt that there was something wrong with it. Xiao AI decisively called the police. "Be careful, dangerous energy detected." Sure enough, Jiang Hai was still smiling. However, with him as the center, the scenery and people around him instantly changed. It was just like cultivating the 8th origin point in the inverse source crystal. The entire world had become a twisted and rotating stripe shape, except for Jiang Hai in front of him. This strange scene was actually happening in the real world. This time, Dingmeng didn't need Xiao AI and the others to remind him. He secretly circulated the first 3 points. Now, he was no longer the same as before. After being tempered in the inverse source crystal, he circulated the first 3 points of the heat source art, and its depth was something that others could only look up to. However, after the origin energy rose, the illusion still existed and was not affected at all. Jiang Hai smiled even more happily. "Student Dingmeng, you don't look too good. Are you sick?" Little rascal finally said, "It's telekinesis. The analysis shows that it's a mental attack." Sure enough, the illusion around them finally took shape. The group of people behind Jiang Hai had all transformed into demons, baring their teeth and looking very scary. Even Dai Yi, who was not far away, had transformed into a monster that looked like a crocodile and was roaring at Jiang Hai. He had suffered a similar loss when he fought Lan Bing. Ding Ming didn't answer. He focused on his eyes, and his telekinetic vision spread out in all directions. This time, his spherical vision only spread out about 10 meters before it was suppressed by an invisible force. If this situation could be described, Ding Ming's telekinesis vision was like an inflating balloon, but when it was halfway inflated, the telekinesis from the outside world was like high-pressure air trying to push the balloon back. The person who had unleashed the telekinesis was definitely not Jiang Hai, but he was sure that this person was an expert. It was rare for someone to be able to use a telekinesis attack to such an extent. This person was at least several times stronger than Lan Bing. Lan Bing's spiritual attack had only transformed her, but this person had transformed everyone around her. He was truly powerful. However, compared to his ability to see through multiple dimensions, Ding Ming was confident that as long as this expert wasn't his teacher, but one of the people in the group, he was confident that he could find them. In Ding Ming's field of vision, the power of telekinesis increased again. Hundreds of stars were released at the same time, fluttering and dancing in the sphere. Soon, they condensed at the edge of the field of vision, forming a layer of light blue substance. The telekinesis from the outside world could no longer enter. Suddenly, a hole was torn open at the edge of his vision. More than 100 dots came out of the hole, searching for their target. 2 seconds later, Ding Ming knew what was going on. The person who had unleashed the telekinesis attack was Sun Shirling, who was standing not far away. She was standing there calmly, but upon closer inspection, Jiang Hai could see that her brows were furrowed. She was secretly exerting force between her brows. Sun Shirling could clearly sense Ding Ming's telekinesis probing. She seemed to have expected this, so she simply allowed the dots to surge toward her like a rabbit. The hunter's gun was already here. She would just stand there and let him hit her. Something unexpected happened again. Sun Shirling's entire person changed. In the blink of an eye, she turned into Dai Yi. This fake Dai Yi actually had a shy and charming expression on her face. The worst part was that she was completely naked. If this was any other time, Ding Ming would have lost his composure and fallen for a trick. Ding Ming's sinister intentions were evident. Sun Shirling used her telekinesis to attack Ding Ming. If Ding Ming couldn't withstand the first round of attacks, he would either go crazy or tremble in fear. If he could withstand the first round of attacks, she would use her body to seduce him. Once Ding Ming saw Sun Shirling drooling like an idiot, it wasn't hard to imagine how Dai Yi would feel. In this way, Jiang Hai's goal of avenging his underling, Yong Bang, had been achieved. He didn't even need to lift a finger to destroy Sun Shirling's image. Ding Ming didn't care much at first. These little calculations were nothing more than a competition of strength. However, now that Sun Shirling had come up with such a trick, Ding Ming couldn't be blamed for playing some tricks. Ding Ming suddenly smiled at Jiang Hai. "I'm fine. Thank you for your concern. It's just that your girlfriend doesn't look well. She must be sick." Hearing this, Jiang Hai was really surprised. He turned his head and saw that Sun Shirling had stopped using her telekinesis. It was as if she had been repelled by an invisible force. She slid back a few meters and sat down on a bench by the flower bed. She bent over and started vomiting. She even vomited out her jaundice. Jiang Hai wasn't the only one who was surprised. Even Yong Bang and the others were dumbfounded. Sun Shirling had used this trick on countless people before. No one had ever revealed their true colors. However, this trick was ineffective on Ding Ming. Not only was it ineffective, but Sun Shirling also suffered a counterattack. This kind of psychic attack was very cool to use, but it was also very risky. Once you were suppressed by the opponent, you would suffer a backlash. Ding Ming directly gathered his psychic wave and shot it at Sun Shirling like a high-pressure water gun. It would be strange if Sun Shirling could block it. Moreover, the psychic micropoint also transmitted a large amount of information from Ding Meng's mind. Therefore, this was what Sun Shirling saw. In the dark and damp underground mining area of the Black Gold Base, there were countless broken limbs everywhere. Many corpses were moldy and smelly. Blood and sewage mixed together and flowed into the trenches. In the tunnel far away, human remains, organs, feces, and even soil were piled up into a small hill. Many workers who were not wearing clothes were probably starving. They were lying on the piles of filth greedily and eating with relish. Sun Shirling was a student who had been living a comfortable life. She had never seen such a cruel and tragic scene. She had to thank Ding Meng for being merciful when she vomited. If 500 or 600 micropoints were used to suppress her, it would probably be her turn to go crazy. Moreover, she wouldn't be able to recover in a short time. Dai still didn't know what had happened. He only saw Jiang Hai supporting Sun Shirling, patting her back and handing her tissues. Dai Ningxing also stopped quarreling. He was also shocked. Was this shorty really from the refugee camp? He would rather believe that Ding Meng had a strong background than believe that Ding Meng was a refugee. If that was true, then there were too many possibilities. Ding Meng ignored Sun Shirling and walked slowly toward the crowd. This group of people didn't want to move aside, especially Yongbang. Everyone could see the hatred on his face. Everyone had the same thought. So what if you can block sister-in-law's spiritual attack? Do you think we'll be afraid of you when so many of us work together? What's more, this was the campus. Fighting was absolutely prohibited. At the critical moment, Jiang Hai walked over. He said with a sullen face, "Move aside." Mu Hua was shocked. In his impression, Jiang Hai had never moved aside for anyone. However, today was the first time he had made an exception. Ding Meng walked to Yongbang's side and stopped. He stopped for a few seconds and didn't say a word. He just looked at the stone slab on the ground expressionlessly. Then he left with Dai. Yongbang was not convinced at first. However, when Ding Meng stopped by his side for a few seconds, he felt a bone-chilling coldness. It was because Ding Meng didn't say a word that he felt cold. This silent warning was far more intimidating than threatening words. It wasn't until Ding Meng and Jiang Hai had completely disappeared in the night that Mu Hua couldn't help but ask, "Hai, are you going to let that guy go just like that?" Jiang Hai ignored him. He just glanced at Yongbang and said indifferently, "Get rid of those unrealistic thoughts." Everyone understood what he meant. He meant to tell them not to have any thoughts about Dai. With their strength, it was not their place to think about her. This Ding Meng was far more powerful than they could imagine. Actually, what he wanted to say the most was to put away their arrogant views of the refugees. Be thankful that Ding Meng didn't care about them. If he did, there would be a lot of trouble. Dongfang Lian said carefully, "He must have come to our school to take the certification exam." Jiang Hai said, "I hope he isn't." Dongfang Lian didn't understand. Why? Jiang Hai looked at everyone and laughed coldly. "Our status is not bad. I'm just afraid that when the exam results are out, we will be worse than refugees. That would be hilarious." Others might not feel anything, but Mu Hua, Yongbang, and Dongfang Lian's faces were as white as a sheet. No matter if it was their family background, status, or cultivation, no matter which aspect, they were not comparable to refugees. However, if they really lost to Ding Meng in the certification exam, it would be too humiliating. The three great clans would lose face. Mu Hua was still relatively calm. He said in a low voice, "Hi, we have been classmates for many years. When the time comes, you won't leave your own brothers behind, right? Don't worry. The first and second places will definitely be mine and Ah Ling's." Jiang Hai looked in the direction Ding Meng disappeared and thought, "This Ding Meng is really worth looking forward to. This year's qualification exam is finally going to be interesting." Chapter 294. Jiang Hai valued Ding Meng a lot, but Ding Meng did not care much about him. After accompanying Dai for a walk on campus, Ding Meng let Dai go back to the girls' dormitory. Of course, there were boys' dormitories in the school as well, and the conditions were quite good. However, Ding Meng drove directly to the Xing Hong group, leaving him very little time and space. He had to use the inverse source crystal quickly. However, the Xinghong group was a little different from usual tonight. The entire Blue Moon branch was brightly lit, and all the lighting was turned on. The tarmac, especially, was as bright as day. Moreover, there were two groups of people standing at the entrance of the first floor. Most of them were definitely unfamiliar faces to Ding Ming, but he still recognized two of them. The person leading the group on the left of the entrance was Yin Yu, the deputy minister of the 2nd General Department, who had mocked and ridiculed him when he first came here. The person leading the group on the right was Li Yu. Li Yu was dressed very formally, even more formally than when he attended the Lang family's banquet. Once he saw Ding Ming, Li was very happy. "Mr. Ding Ming, you're back." Ding Ming was very puzzled. "What are you doing? It's almost 24 o'clock in the middle of the night. Aren't you guys getting off work?" Li Yu said softly, "We receive a notice from Saint Splendor's headquarters during the day. A high-level figure will arrive at the Blue Moon branch tonight, but the leader has not arrived yet. We've been standing here for 5 hours." He could understand why the General Affairs Department was in charge of receiving guests, but the entire building was brightly lit. He was curious. "Is everyone still working?" Li Yu said helplessly, "We have to leave a good impression on the higher-ups at the headquarters. The people at the headquarters have always kept a low profile. Otherwise, more than 1,000 people would have come out to receive him." "You guys are really—" Ding Ming was speechless. "You guys are really dedicated. This is my job," Li Yu replied with a smile. At this time, Yin Yu came over with a strange expression. "I say, little Yu, why is your poor relative here again? Our Star Rainbow group is not a place where any Tom, Dick, or Harry can enter. Today, little Yu actually dares to let your relative in. You're even wearing the Jindy brand. Brother, where did you borrow these clothes from?" "Oh, it's quite new." As he spoke, he went to adjust Ding Ming's hood. Ding Ming was too lazy to pay attention to this guy. With Yin Yu's fragile body, Ding Ming could blow him away with just a breath. "Yin Yu, I've told you before that this is our group's VIP. Please pay attention to your words and don't ruin our Star Rainbow's image," Li Yu bluntly retorted. Yin Yu smiled. "Image? Does this guy even have a decent image?" "Don't think I don't remember how this guy looked like when he was begging for food last time." Li Yu was about to reprimand him when everyone's wristwatches suddenly flashed blue. The screen automatically rose, and the system notified everyone that the spaceship was about to arrive. The spaceship was naturally Star Rainbow's Rainbow Bird Transport Ship. However, when the connecting hatch opened, the first person to walk out surprised Ding Ming. This was because he knew this person. It was Su Mengqing, who had made a deal with him on Cypress Planet. No matter where Su Mengqing went, she shone brightly, and this time was no exception. The moment she came down from the spaceship, it was as if she had walked out of countless bright spotlights. Even when she got off the spaceship, she walked on the red carpet. It had to be said that this woman was born to be a star. Yin Yu and Li Yu had already led everyone to welcome her, but Elan and the male bodyguard behind Su Mengqing blocked everyone. Su Mengqing smiled and explained, "Department Head Yin, Department Head Li, please don't be impatient. I just came down first. Miss Ling still has something to take care of at the space station. Please wait for a moment." Ding Ming thought to himself that Su Mengqing was not the main character. That Miss Ling was the higher-ups. However, Su Mengqing's status was also incredible. Yin Yu and Li Yu still had to be polite. Everyone in Star Rainbow knew that this popular star had a very close relationship with the higher-ups. Even Su Mengqing was here to take the lead. It was enough to show that the person on the space station had a higher status. However, Su Mengqing's charm was not to be underestimated. Yin Yu was so excited that his whole body was trembling. He had worked at the Blue Moon branch for so many years, and this was the 3rd time he had seen Su Mengqing in person. Furthermore, this was the closest he had ever been. Not only did Goddess Su remember his name and position, she even smiled at him. This smile almost made his soul fly away. He was still secretly savoring the goddess smile, but at this moment, the goddess revealed a surprised expression. This person looks a little familiar." Yin Yu was stunned and explained before Li Yu could. Miss Sue, this person is not from our Star Rainbow Corporation. Su Mengqing smiled again. I know he's not. It's because he's our Star Rainbow Corporation's VIP. Damn, it can't be, right? Yin Yu was a little stunned. Could this kid really not be Li Yu's relative? And he's a VIP that I personally invited. The smile on Su Mingqing's face became even sweeter and more moving. She walked towards Ding Meng in a very enchanting catwalk. Long time no see. After saying that, she took the initiative to gently hug Ding Meng. There was no helping it. People in the entertainment industry greeted each other in this way to show their intimacy. However, although she was enthusiastic, Ding Meng was cold and indifferent. He did not even return the hug, or even raise his hand. In his opinion, this woman was very scheming. It was better to have less contact with her. Therefore, he only replied indifferently, "Hello. How are you? How have you been recently? I heard that you've already started using the goods. Is it going well?" Su Mingqing's gaze was very sly. Ding Meng said, "It's so, but I still have to thank you." Su Mingqing smiled and said, "You're too polite. Please be more casual when you're with me. Don't be so restrained." Her words were very provocative, but the straight man's reaction was very mechanical. "I've never been polite." Su Mingqing giggled. "That's good." The conversation between the two shocked the surrounding people. The two of them had a close relationship, especially Yin Yu. He was very excited when he saw Goddess Su, but when Ding Meng saw the goddess, it was like seeing a piece of iron plate. Ding Meng's attitude towards Li Yu was much more polite than his attitude towards Su Mingqing. Yin Yu rubbed his eyes again to make sure that he was not mistaken. The straight man had already said goodbye. "You guys take your time. I'll go up first." "Wait a minute." Su Mingqing hurriedly stopped him. "Miss Ling will be here soon. Don't you want to wait for her?" Ding Meng did not care about Miss Ling or Big Sis Ling at all. He was too lazy to even look back. "I still have something to do." Watching his back disappear into the shuttle stairs, Su Mingqing muttered to herself, "You're really not polite at all." But then again, Zhenghao subordinates should also be like this. They're straightforward and always keep to themselves. About 20 minutes after Ding Meng went up, 5 more bright spots appeared in the night sky. The spots quickly grew bigger, and 5 rainbow bird spaceships slowly landed on the empty ground. The first 2 spaceships all had the same suits. Like Su Mingqing's bodyguards, they all wore big sunglasses that hid their faces, but the origin energy fluctuations on their bodies were abnormally strong. This kind of strength was not the degree of intensity, but the purity of their origin energy. Everyone seemed to have the aura of a beginner warrior, but in fact, any expert would be able to feel that there was something extraordinary about them. Ilan and the male bodyguard both had a clear understanding that none of these dozens of security guards were lower than warlords. Most of them might even be warlords. Even the security guards were this strong, which was enough to show just how prominent this person's position was. Sure enough, surrounded by the 5 bodyguards, a beautiful woman slowly walked down from the retractable ladder that connected to the hatch. She looked to be about the same age as Li Yu, and she was wearing the most standard uniform of the Starbao group. It was the kind of women's uniform that had a girdle around the waist and a skirt on the bottom. It was just an ordinary suit, but it looked different on her. Her face was slightly round, and her hair was tied up high, which made her unibrow stand out. Under normal circumstances, beautiful women rarely had thick eyebrows and big eyes. Not only were her eyebrows thick, her eyes were also big, but this actually added a bit of grace to her. Her face could not be considered to be the type that was absolutely stunning. At first glance, you would only think that she was a natural beauty, but upon closer inspection, you would find that she was very pleasing to the eye. When she walked out of the hatch, her face was expressionless. When she walked down the retractable ladder and saw the employees who came to greet her, she revealed a smile. This smile immediately made her entire person come alive. She seemed very gentle, very friendly, and very warm, but you could also faintly feel that this person was definitely very serious, very shrewd, and very mature. From afar, she had a kind of unique charm that was a mixture of elegance, and even devilishness. This kind of charm was not only expressed through the appearance and figure, but also through the outstanding temperament. This temperament made the surrounding beauties all pale in comparison, including Su Mengqing. Yingyu and Liu had already gone up to greet her. Compared to the speed at which they greeted Su Mengqing, they were not slow at all. This was because they never would have thought that the person who came from Saint Splinter's headquarters was actually the assistant to the Star Bao Group's vice president, Transit String. This identity was not that impressive because her other identity was more frightening. Her father was the current president of the Star Bao Group, Ling Zhixing. He was a celebrity in the highest circle of the Federation. Putting aside the factor of her identity, Transit String herself was also very outstanding. She was proficient in many fields, such as origin energy, technology, military, biology, finance, media, medicine, architecture, design. She could be said to be an all-round genius. It was rumored that President Ling had the intention to cultivate her as the successor of the Star Bao Group. In addition, she would occasionally make guest appearances in the Star Combat League, the entertainment industry, the film industry, and the entertainment industry. She had received the praise of many authoritative figures. The Holy Grail Federation had various rankings, such as the beauty rankings. Transit String was not the most dazzling one, but based on her beauty, family background, talent, and ability, she was ranked 8th. She was the dream lover of countless men in the Federation. Now that she had suddenly arrived in Blue Pole Star City, everyone was curious. What exactly had Miss Ling come here for? Of course, one thing was for sure. Something that could alarm Miss Ling in person was definitely not a small matter. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.